The text arrived while I was buying flowers for my father's grave. White roses, his favorite, from the same shop where he'd bought them for my mother every Friday until she died 10 years ago. Don't bother coming to the funeral. Ungrateful daughters don't deserve to say goodbye, Janet. I read it 3 times, standing in the florist shop while the elderly owner, Mrs. Park, wrapped the roses in tissue paper. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. I'd learned long ago that Janet's cruelty was as predictable as her Botox appointments. Everything all right, dear? Mrs. Park asked, her weathered hands pausing in their work. Family drama, I said, pocketing my phone. Nothing new. She tooted sympathetically. Funerals bring out the worst in people. These are on the house. Your father was a good man. I thanked her and left, roses in hand, knowing I wouldn't be allowed to place them on his casket, but that was fine. I had other plans for this morning. The Wells Fargo building downtown was quiet at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Most people were probably preparing for the 11 a.m. service at Riverside Memorial Chapel, where my stepmother Janet would be playing the grieving widow despite having spent the last 5 years draining my father's accounts. Ms. Blackwood, the bank manager, Harrison Wells, met me in the lobby. Everything is prepared in the conference room. I followed him past the regular banking floor to a private area reserved for high-value clients. The conference room held a long mahogany table, leather chairs, and 3 people I'd specifically requested: a notary, a court-appointed witness, and Patricia Kumar from the district attorney's office. Thank you all for coming on a Saturday, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. I know this is unusual, but my father was very specific about the timing. Harrison spread out the documents. As executor of William Blackwood's estate, you have full authority to proceed. Shall we begin? I nodded, pulling out my phone to check the time. 9:15. The funeral would start in an hour and 45 minutes. Perfect. First, I said, opening my briefcase, I need to present my father's actual will, not the forgery my stepmother filed with the probate court last week. Patricia Kumar leaned forward, interest sharpening her features. Forgery is a serious accusation, Ms. Blackwood. I'm aware. I handed her 2 documents. On the left is the will Janet filed. On the right is my father's real will, drafted by Morrison Associates 2 months ago, signed in the presence of 3 witnesses, and recorded on video. She studied both documents. The signatures are completely different. Because Janet traced his signature from birthday cards, she didn't realize Dad had developed a tremor in his right hand after his stroke. His real signature shows it. The forgery doesn't. Do you have the video? I pulled out a tablet and hit play. The screen showed my father, thin but alert, sitting in a law office. His voice was clear as he stated his name, the date, and his intent to create a new will. I, William James Blackwood, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and declare this to be my final testament. He looked directly at the camera. I want the record to show that I am not being coerced. My wife Janet is not present because I have discovered she has been stealing from me for years. The evidence is in my safety deposit box at Wells Fargo, which only my daughter Emma has access to. Harrison produced a key from his pocket. Shall we? The safety deposit box was brought to the conference room. Inside were bank statements, forged checks, receipts for jewelry and cars I'd never seen, and a ledger in Janet's handwriting detailing exactly how she'd been siphoning money from various accounts. $500,000, Patricia said, scanning the evidence. This is grand larceny. It gets worse, I said, pulling out more documents. She mortgaged his house, my childhood home, without his knowledge, forged his signature on the deed transfer. She was planning to sell it the day after the funeral. My phone buzzed. A text from my stepbrother Kyle. Where are you? Mom's looking for you. I ignored it and continued. My father knew he was dying. He also knew Janet would try to cut me out of everything, so he made preparations. Harrison opened another folder. Mr. Blackwood transferred all liquid assets to a trust 3 months ago. Mrs. Janet Blackwood has no access to these accounts. How much? Patricia asked. $8 million in liquid assets. Another $12 million in real estate holdings. All of it goes to Emma, except for one thing. Harrison smiled slightly. He left Janet exactly $1, quote, so she cannot contest this will on grounds of being forgotten. I thought about Janet standing at the funeral right now, accepting condolences, probably already mentally spending money she'd never see. The image should have brought me satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. There's more, I said. Dad knew Janet would try to ban me from the funeral. He paid for everything in advance, the plot, the service, the reception, But he also did something else. I pulled out the final document. He bought the funeral home 2 months ago, through a shell company I manage. Patricia actually laughed. He bought the entire funeral home? He wanted to make sure I'd have a legal right to attend his funeral, regardless of what Janet did. I smiled sadly. He said, Emma, they can't ban you from your own property. My phone rang. Kyle again. This time I answered and put it on speaker. Emma, where the hell are you? The service is starting in 20 minutes. I'm handling Dad's estate, I said calmly, as his executor. You're not the executor. Mom has the will. Mom has a forgery. I have the real will, plus evidence of her stealing $500,000. I paused. Tell her the police will be waiting when the service ends. Silence. Then, you're lying. Check the funeral home contract, I said. Ask her who owns Riverside Memorial. Spoiler alert, it's me. I hung up and turned to Patricia. How do you want to handle this? We'll wait until after the service, she said, gathering the evidence. No need to make a scene at the funeral itself. Thank you. I stood, collecting my own copies. I should go. I have a eulogy to deliver. They banned you, Harrison said gently. They tried. I picked up the roses Mrs. Park had given me, but you can't ban someone from their own property, and you certainly can't stop a daughter from saying goodbye to her father. The drive to Riverside Memorial took 15 minutes. I parked in the owner's spot, my spot, and used my key to enter through the side door. The main chapel was full. Maybe 200 people who'd known and loved my father. I could see Janet in the front row, draped in black like a Victorian widow. I made my way to the small viewing room adjacent to the main chapel. Through the one-way glass, I could watch the service without being seen. Dad's casket was covered in flowers, everything except white roses. Janet had always hated them because they reminded her I'd existed before her. The funeral director, Mr. Riverside, found me there. Miss Blackwood, I heard about the situation. What would you like me to do? Nothing for now, I said. Let her have her show. The service was beautiful, I had to admit. Janet had spared no expense, with Dad's money. Of course, the eulogies painted him as a devoted husband and successful businessman. No one mentioned his first wife. No one mentioned me. When it came time for Janet to speak, she approached the podium with practiced grief. William was my everything, she began, dabbing at dry eyes. These last months were so difficult, especially with family members who caused him such stress and pain. Several people glanced around, probably looking for me, Janet continued, but in the end, it was just us, the way he wanted it. That's when I entered the chapel. The side door opened directly onto the raised platform where the casket sat. I walked slowly, roses in hand, very aware of the gasps and whispers rippling through the crowd. How dare you? Janet shrieked. I told you. You told me not to come to the funeral, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the chapel. But this is my funeral home. Dad bought it for me, just like he left me everything else. Security. I am security, I said. I'm the owner, and as the owner, I'm revoking your reservation. You have 10 minutes to conclude this service. The crowd erupted. Some people stood to leave, others pulled out phones. Everyone talked at once. Through it all, I walked to my father's casket and placed the white roses on top. Hi, Dad, I whispered. I'm sorry it had to be this way, but I promised you I'd protect everything you built. I promised I'd tell the truth, and I promised I'd stand up to her, no matter what. I turned to face the crowd. Many of these people had been friends of my father's for decades. They deserved to know the truth. My father died knowing his wife had stolen from him, I said, my voice steady. He died knowing she would try to steal everything from me, too, so he made sure she couldn't. Every dollar she spent planning this funeral came from accounts she no longer controls. Every asset she thought she'd inherit is already gone, and in approximately, I checked my watch, 15 minutes, she'll be arrested for fraud, forgery, and grand larceny. Janet's face had gone from red to white. You can't prove anything. Dad kept excellent records, I said. He also recorded every conversation from the last 6 months, including the one where you told Kyle that you couldn't wait for him to die so you could finally get rid of his miserable daughter. Kyle stood up in the front row. Mom, what is she talking about? She's lying. Janet grabbed his arm. She's always been jealous. The police are outside, I said quietly. Dad wanted you to have the funeral you planned. He said everyone deserves a proper goodbye, even from people who didn't love them. I walked back to the casket, running my hand along the polished wood. The real funeral, the one for people who actually loved William Blackwood, will be next Saturday. Same time, same place. Everyone is welcome except the woman who spent 5 years robbing him blind. Patricia Kumar entered with 2 uniformed officers. She nodded to me, then approached Janet. Mrs. Blackwood, we need to speak with you outside. This is harassment, Janet shrieked, but she was already backing away. I'll sue every one of you. With what money? I asked. Dad left you $1. He said it was one more than you deserved. As the officers escorted Janet out, the chapel fell silent. Then, from the back row, someone started clapping. Mrs. Park, the florist. Soon others joined in, Dad's golf buddies, his business partners, neighbors who'd watched him suffer in silence. Kyle remained in his seat, staring at his hands. I walked over and sat beside him. I'm sorry, I said. I know she's your mom. I knew she was taking money, he admitted quietly. I didn't know how much. I didn't know about the house. Dad didn't want to punish you for her crimes. There's a trust fund for your education. He wanted you to finish law school. He laughed bitterly. Guess I'll need it for her defense attorney. That's your choice, but Dad hoped you'd use it to become the kind of lawyer who stops people like her. I stood to leave, then remembered one more thing. Oh, and Kyle, you're welcome at the real funeral next week. Dad always liked you. He just couldn't stand what your mother was doing to both of us. The chapel emptied slowly. People stopped to offer condolences, to share memories, to whisper their suspicions about Janet. I stayed until everyone was gone except Mr. Riverside. What would you like me to do with the flowers? He asked. Donate them to the hospital. Dad always said funeral flowers were wasted on the dead. I looked at the casket one more time, except the white roses. Those stay with him. Later that evening, I sat in my father's study, my study now, going through his papers. I found the letter he'd left for me, separate from the will. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then you've already done the hardest thing I ever asked of you. You've stood up to Janet, protected our family legacy, and shown the world who you really are, my brave daughter who spoke the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from her while I was alive. The stroke weakened me more than just physically, but I could still plan. I could still ensure that everything I built would go to the person who deserved it. The funeral home was probably overkill. Your mother would have laughed at me spending $2 million just to make sure you could attend my funeral, but I knew Janet would try to keep you away, and I couldn't bear the thought of you not being able to say goodbye. Use the money wisely, build something that matters, and remember, the only approval you ever needed was your own. All my love. Dad. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Tomorrow, there would be lawyers to meet, properties to manage, and a business empire to run, but tonight, I just sat in his chair, surrounded by his books and his memories, finally able to grieve the father I'd been protecting even as he protected me. Janet had tried to ban me from his funeral. Instead, she'd given me the chance to honor him the way he deserved, with truth, justice, and white roses on his casket. Ungrateful daughters don't deserve to say goodbye? Maybe not. But daughters who fight for their fathers, who stand up to thieves and liars, who honor last wishes and keep promises? We don't just say goodbye. We say it on our own terms, in our own funeral homes, with the truth echoing off every wall. And somewhere, I think Dad was smiling.
They say grief changes you. What they don't tell you is that it can also make you dangerous. My name is Maria, and 3 years ago I buried my husband Lance after a drunk driver took him from me on a Tuesday morning. He was 34. We'd been married for 6 years, together for 8, and I thought I knew what forever looked like. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. The Lance Wallace Foundation has awarded scholarships to 47 young women this year alone, I said into my phone, pacing around my office. The reporter on the other end was doing a feel-good piece about local non-profits. These are brilliant minds who might never have had the chance to pursue engineering, computer science or medicine without... Mrs. Wallace? My assistant Savannah poked her head through the door, her usually bright expression clouded with concern. Your mother called. She says it's urgent. I felt my stomach drop. My mother Beatrice only used the word urgent when she wanted something expensive or when someone had crossed the family. Given that our annual gala was next week, I suspected both. I'll call you back, I told the reporter, and hung up. What did she say exactly? Family emergency. Your father wants to see you immediately. Savannah's voice dropped to a whisper. She sounded different, scared maybe. I grabbed my purse and keys. The drive to my parents' house in the hills usually took 20 minutes, but I made it in 15. Their sprawling estate looked the same as always, perfectly manicured, intimidatingly expensive, and cold as a mausoleum. Tessa's car was in the driveway. My younger sister's presence meant this wasn't about foundation business, it was about family business, which was infinitely worse. I found them in my father's study, the same room where he'd conducted his business meetings throughout my childhood, the same room where he'd told me Lance wasn't good enough for our family, the same room where he'd later demanded I use my husband's death as a networking opportunity. Tessa sat in the leather chair by the window, her designer dress wrinkled, her usually perfect blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Maria. My mother Beatrice rose from her chair with the grace of a woman who'd spent decades perfecting her public persona. Thank you for coming so quickly. What's wrong? I looked between my parents and my sister. Is someone hurt? Sit down, sweetheart. My father Reginald didn't look up from the papers spread across his mahogany desk. At 60, he still commanded every room he entered, but today something felt different. Desperate. I'll stand, thanks. What's this about? Tessa finally looked at me and I saw tears in her eyes. Maria, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to get this bad. For what to get this bad? My father cleared his throat. Tessa has found herself in a difficult financial situation. She owes some rather unsavoury people a considerable amount of money. How much? I asked, though I already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. $300,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. I stared at my sister. 300,000? Tessa, what the hell? It started small, she said quickly. Just poker games with friends, then the casino, then online betting. I kept thinking I could win it back, but you couldn't. I turned to my parents. And you want me to help her? We want you to do your duty as her sister, my mother said, her voice sharp with disapproval. Family comes first, Maria, always. My duty, I laughed, but there was no humour in it. My duty is to the 47 women who are going to change the world because of Lance's foundation. My duty is to honour my husband's memory, not bail out my sister's gambling addiction. The foundation has plenty of money, my father said, more than enough to help Tessa and continue its work. That money isn't mine to give away. It belongs to the women we're trying to help. It belongs to this family, my mother snapped. That foundation exists because of Wallace money, and don't you forget it. I felt something cold settle in my chest. What's that supposed to mean? My father finally looked up from his papers, and his eyes were harder than I'd ever seen them. It means your charity has lived long enough. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Tessa, who was crying openly now, then at my parents, who were watching me with the calculating expressions of people who'd already decided my fate. You're serious, I whispered. You actually want me to destroy Lance's legacy to pay for her gambling debts? We want you to save your sister, my mother said, before these people decide to collect in other ways. I backed toward the door, my heart pounding. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about, my father said. The gala is next week. You'll announce your decision then. And if I refuse? He smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Then we'll make the decision for you. I didn't sleep that night. By morning I'd convinced myself that maybe I'd misunderstood, that my parents couldn't possibly be threatening to destroy everything Lance and I had built together. I was wrong about that too. You look terrible, Savannah said when I walked into the foundation office at 7 a.m., 2 hours earlier than usual. Thanks, that's exactly what every woman wants to hear. I mean it, Maria. What happened yesterday? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Family meeting at 10 a.m, don't be late. I have to go back, I told Savannah. Can you handle the morning calls? Of course, but I'll explain later, maybe. The second family meeting was worse than the first. This time they'd prepared. We've spoken to the board, my father announced as soon as I walked into his study. Stella agrees that you've been under tremendous stress since Lance's death. Stella said what? Stella was one of our most prominent board members, someone I'd considered an ally. She's concerned about your judgment, my mother added. We all are. Tessa looked up from the same chair she'd occupied yesterday. Maria, please, these people aren't playing games. They've already been to my apartment twice. What people exactly? Does it matter? My father snapped. Your sister is in danger, and you're worried about paperwork. I'm worried about the law, Dad. The foundation has legal obligations. I can't just write a check for $300,000 because Tessa made bad choices. Bad choices? My mother's voice rose. She's your sister. And Lance was my husband. The foundation is his legacy, not the family piggy bank. Lance is dead, my father said coldly. Tessa is alive and needs our help. The words hit me like a slap. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth. You've been living in a fantasy, Maria, playing charity worker with money that doesn't belong to you. That money was donated by people who believe in our mission. That money came from this family's investments, from my business success, from the Wallace name and reputation. Something in his tone made me pause. What business success? Don't be naive, sweetheart. Every dollar in that foundation can be traced back to Wallace Enterprises, to my partnerships and deals over the years. What partnerships? My mother shot my father a warning look, but he ignored her. The kind that built this family's fortune. The kind that gave you the luxury of playing philanthropist instead of getting a real job. A real job? I run a non-profit that's changed dozens of lives. You run a hobby, he interrupted, and hobbies end when family needs come first. Tessa finally spoke up. Maybe there's another way. Maybe I could get a loan. From who? My mother demanded. Your credit is destroyed. No bank will touch you. What about rehab? I suggested. What about actually dealing with the gambling addiction instead of just throwing money at it? There's no time for that, my father said. These people want their money now. Then maybe Tessa should have thought about that before she... Before she what? Tessa stood up, her face flushed. Before she got sick, before she developed an addiction, you think I wanted this? I think you've never faced real consequences for anything in your life. That's enough, my mother said sharply. Both of you. No, it's not enough. I turned to face all three of them. You want me to steal from a charity. You want me to betray every donor who trusted us with their money. You want me to destroy Lance's memory so Tessa can keep gambling. We want you to save your sister's life, my father said, by destroying mine. Your life? He laughed. Maria, you don't have a life. You have a shrine to a dead man and a charity that lets you feel important. That's not living. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Get out of my way. Where are you going? Home, away from here, away from all of you. The gala is in 6 days, my mother called after me. You'll announce your decision then, or we'll announce it for you. I stopped at the door. What's that supposed to mean? It means, my father said, that if you won't step down voluntarily, we'll call for a vote of no confidence. Stella's already agreed to second the motion. You can't do that. We're board members, Maria. We absolutely can do that. I drove straight to Savannah's apartment, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. She took one look at my face and poured 2 large glasses of wine. They want to destroy the foundation. I told her everything. The gambling debts, the threats, the board manipulation. They can't actually remove you, can they? If they have enough votes, yes, and they seem confident they do. Savannah was quiet for a long moment. Maria, can I ask you something? Sure. Where did your family's money actually come from? I mean, your father's always been vague about his business background. I stared at her. Why do you ask? Because in 3 years of running this foundation, I've never been able to trace the original seed funding back to any legitimate Wallace business. It just appeared. Something cold settled in my stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time we found out exactly where our money came from, before we decide whether it's worth fighting for. I set down my wine glass. You think there's something wrong with the foundation's funding? I think, Savannah said carefully, that your parents are awfully confident they can take it away from you, and I'm wondering why. That night I lay awake thinking about Lance, about the foundation, about the strange look in my father's eyes when he'd mentioned his partnerships. I was going to find out the truth, even if it destroyed everything. Jeffrey, I need you to pull every financial record we have on the foundation's original funding. Our lawyer looked up from his coffee, surprised by my early morning ambush in his office. Maria, it's 7:30 a.m. What's going on? My family is trying to destroy the foundation. I need to know exactly where our money came from. Okay, slow down. Jeffrey gestured to the chair across from his desk. Tell me what happened. I explained everything. Tessa's debts, my parents' ultimatum, the threatened board vote. Jeffrey's expression grew darker with each detail. They can't just vote you out without cause, he said finally. They seem to think they can, and they're acting like they own the foundation's assets. Well, legally speaking, they don't. The foundation is a separate entity. Jeffrey. I leaned forward. Where did the original $2 million come from? The seed money that started everything? He frowned. From your father's business investments, according to the paperwork. Why? What business investments exactly? I'd have to check the files, but I believe it was from the sale of his partnership in some consulting firm. Maria, why are you asking? Because something doesn't add up. My father's been vague about his business background for years, and now he's talking about the foundation money like it belongs to him personally. Jeffrey was quiet for a moment. You want me to dig deeper? I want you to find out everything. Every transaction, every source, every detail about where that money came from. That could take days. We have 5 days until the gala. Get started. While Jeffrey worked on the financial records, I drove to my parents' house, not to see them, to see Tessa alone. I found her in the garden, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. Since when do you smoke? She jumped, dropping the cigarette. Maria, I didn't hear you come in. Mum and Dad aren't here. Country club, some charity luncheon. She laughed bitterly. Ironic, right? Tessa, I need you to tell me exactly who you owe money to. Why does it matter? Because I'm trying to understand how we got here. $300,000 doesn't happen overnight. She sat down on the garden bench, looking smaller than I'd seen her since we were kids. It started 2 years ago, just friendly poker games with some people I met at the casino. What people? Rich people, bored people, the kind who bet more on one hand than most people make in a month. And you kept playing because I was winning at first, a lot. Enough to pay off my credit cards, enough to buy that car, enough to feel like I was finally good at something. But then you started losing. Not right away. It was gradual. A bad night here, a worse night there. But I kept thinking I could win it back. That's how it works, Maria. That's how they get you. Who's they? Tessa looked away. The people who run the games. They're not exactly legitimate business people. You're talking about criminals. I'm talking about people who don't accept "I'll pay you next week" as an answer. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeffrey. Found something. Come back now. I have to go, I told Tessa. But we're not done talking about this. Maria, wait. She grabbed my arm. I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you. I hate what you've done. There's something else. Something I haven't told Mum and Dad. What? The people I owe money to. They know about the foundation. They know about you. Ice ran through my veins. What do you mean they know about me? They've been asking questions about your husband, about the foundation's assets, about whether you'd be willing to help family. You told them about Lance? I didn't tell them anything, but they seemed to know everything anyway. I stared at her. Tessa, exactly who are these people? I don't know their real names, but Maria, I think they've been planning this. I think they targeted me because of you. I was back in Jeffrey's office within 20 minutes, my mind racing. What did you find? Jeffrey spread papers across his desk. The original 2 million came from the dissolution of Wallace Hartley Consulting in 1998, your father's partnership with someone named Wilfred. My blood turned to ice. Wilfred who? Wilfred Wallace. No relation to your family despite the name. Geoffrey looked up. Maria, you've gone completely white. Wilfred Wallace was Lance's father. What? Lance's father was Wilfred Wallace. He died 5 years ago, right before Lance and I got married. Geoffrey stared at me. Your father was in business with your husband's father? Lance never mentioned any business partnership. He said his father died broke, that there was no inheritance, no family money. According to these records, the partnership was dissolved after allegations of financial impropriety. Wilfred filed a complaint claiming your father had embezzled funds. What happened to the complaint? It was dropped. Wilfred died shortly after filing it. I sank into the chair. Geoffrey, are you telling me that the foundation, Lance's foundation, was built with money stolen from Lance's father? I'm telling you that's what it looks like, but Maria, there's more. More? The timing of everything. Your father's sudden wealth, Wilfred's death, even your meeting Lance. It all happened within a very short time frame. What are you suggesting? Geoffrey hesitated. I'm suggesting that maybe your marriage wasn't as coincidental as you thought, and maybe your family's current desperation isn't just about Tessa's gambling debts. My phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Geoffrey said. But I was already picking up. Hello, Mum. Maria, darling, we need to talk. There's been a development with Tessa's situation. What kind of development? The kind that means we're out of time. The gala is in 4 days and decisions need to be made tonight. I'm not ready to make any decisions. Then we'll make them for you. Family meeting at 8 p.m. Don't be late. She hung up before I could respond. Geoffrey was watching me carefully. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out the truth, all of it. And then I looked at the papers scattered across his desk, evidence of lies, theft, and betrayal spanning decades. Then I'm going to burn it all down. The emergency board meeting was called for 6 p.m., 2 hours before my parents' family meeting. I walked into the foundation's conference room to find 5 of our 7 board members already seated around the polished oak table. My parents sat at the far end like judges. Stella avoided my eyes. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, my father began, as if he were chairing the meeting instead of me. Actually, Reginald, I called this meeting. I took my seat at the head of the table. As director of the foundation? Maria, my mother's voice was honey over steel. We're all concerned about you. The stress of running the foundation, the upcoming gala, your sister's situation. Let's cut the bullshit, Mom. You want to vote me out so you can raid the foundation's accounts. Gasps around the table. Stella finally looked at me, her face flushed. That's not what this is about, Stella said quietly. Maria, you've been erratic lately, missing meetings, making decisions without board approval. What meetings have I missed? The budget review last month. I was in the hospital with food poisoning. I sent Savannah with my notes. The donor appreciation dinner. My husband's death anniversary. I told everyone weeks in advance. Board member James cleared his throat. Maria, perhaps we should discuss this privately. No. My father's voice cut through the room. This needs to be addressed now, before the gala. Maria, you're not well. Everyone can see it. I'm not well, I laughed, or I'm not compliant. You're obsessed with Lance's memory to an unhealthy degree, my mother said. The foundation has become a shrine instead of a functioning charity. We've awarded 47 scholarships this year alone. How is that not functioning? Because you refuse to consider the bigger picture, my father said. This family has needs. This family has wants. There's a difference. Stella spoke up. Maria, if you would just consider taking a temporary leave of absence. So you can loot the accounts while I'm gone? So you can get the help you need, my mother finished. I looked around the table. How many of you have they gotten to? Silence. James? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Maria, maybe some time away would be good for you. Patricia? Our newest board member shifted uncomfortably. The foundation's reputation is important. If there are questions about leadership stability, there are no questions about leadership stability. There are questions about whether my parents can steal charity money to pay my sister's gambling debts. That's enough, my father snapped. I move for a vote of no confidence in Maria's leadership. I second, Stella whispered. All in favour? 4 hands went up. Mine and Savannah's stayed down. Board member David was absent. Motion carries, my father announced. Maria, you're hereby suspended as director pending a full review. You can't do this. We just did. My mother smiled. Stella will serve as interim director. I stood up slowly. Stella, do you know where the foundation's original funding came from? She frowned. From your father's business investments. From money he embezzled from his business partner, Lance's father. The room went dead silent. That's a serious accusation, James said. It's a documented fact. Jeffrey has the records. You're lying, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Then you won't mind if we have an independent audit of the foundation's finances. There's no need for an audit, my mother said quickly. There's every need, especially if you're planning to make major financial decisions as interim leadership. I walked to the door, then turned back. The gala is in 4 days. By then, everyone will know the truth about this family and this foundation. Maria, wait, Stella called after me, but I was already gone. I found Tessa waiting in my car in the parking lot. How did you? I've been calling you for an hour. Savannah told me where you were. She looked terrible, pale, shaking, dark circles under her eyes. Maria, we need to talk. I'm done talking. I'm done with all of you. Those people I owe money to. They're not just criminals. They're connected to Dad's old business. I stopped trying to start the car. What? I did some digging after our conversation. The poker games, the people who run them, they're connected to Wilfred's old company, the one Dad supposedly bought out. That's impossible. Wilfred died 5 years ago. But his associates didn't. Maria, I think this whole thing was planned. My gambling addiction, the debts, the pressure on you. I think they've been setting this up for years. Why would they do that? Because Dad didn't just embezzle from Wilfred, he destroyed him. Wilfred lost everything. His business, his reputation, his health. He died broke and disgraced. Lance never told me any of this. Maybe Lance didn't know, or maybe he was protecting you. I stared at my sister. Tessa, are you saying that these people deliberately got you addicted to gambling? I'm saying they made it very easy for me to lose very large amounts of money very quickly, and now they want it back from the foundation that was built with their stolen money. This is insane. Is it? Think about it, Maria. Dad steals from Wilfred. Wilfred dies. And suddenly you're married to Wilfred's son and running a foundation funded by the stolen money. That's a lot of coincidences. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your sister is right. Time to pay what's owed. See you at the gala. I showed Tessa the message. Her face went white. They're going to be at the gala? Looks like it. Maria, what are we going to do? I started the car. We're going to end this, all of it. How? By telling the truth at the gala, in front of everyone. That will destroy the family. The family destroyed itself years ago. I'm just going to make it public. And the foundation. I thought about Lance, about the 47 young women whose lives had been changed, about the stolen money that had made it all possible. The foundation will survive. It has to. What about me? What about the people I owe? What about them, Tessa? You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. They'll kill me. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you gambled away $300,000. She started crying. I can't fix this alone. You're not alone, but I'm not going to sacrifice Lance's legacy to save you from your own mistakes. So what happens now? I pulled out of the parking lot, my mind already working on what I needed to do before the gala. Now we find out exactly how deep this goes, and then we burn it all down. The Grandview Hotel ballroom sparkled under crystal chandeliers. 300 guests in black tie and evening gowns, mingled with champagne glasses, completely unaware that they were about to witness a family's destruction. I stood in the ladies' room, staring at my reflection. The black dress Lance had bought me for our last anniversary. The pearl necklace that had been his grandmother's. I looked like I was dressed for a funeral. Maybe I was. "Maria," Savannah pushed through the door. "It's time. Your parents are about to start. Are you ready?" She patted the sealed manila envelope in her purse. "Everything's here. Financial records, legal documents, the timeline Jeffrey put together. If you don't use it, I'll use it." I touched the matching envelope in my clutch. "Where's Tessa?" "Haven't seen her, but there are some men here who don't look like typical donors. They're watching the exits." "Wilfred's people." "Probably. Maria, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back." "There's already no going back." We walked into the ballroom together. The crowd was impressive. Local politicians, business leaders, foundation donors, and scholarship recipients. The kind of people whose opinions could make or break reputations. My parents stood near the stage, holding court with major donors. My father looked distinguished in his tuxedo, every inch the successful businessman. My mother radiated elegance in midnight blue silk. They looked like the perfect philanthropic power couple. They looked like liars. "Maria," Stella approached with a nervous smile. "You look beautiful. I'm so glad you decided to come." "Wouldn't miss it." "About the board meeting." "Don't worry about it, Stella. Everything will work out exactly as it should." She frowned at my tone, but was pulled away by another donor before she could respond. I scanned the room and spotted them. 3 men in expensive suits who didn't belong. They weren't mingling, weren't drinking, weren't pretending to care about scholarships for young women. They were watching me. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator's voice echoed through the sound system. "Please take your seats. We're ready to begin." I found my assigned table near the front. Savannah sat beside me, Jeffrey on my other side. My parents were at the head table on the stage, along with Stella and the other board members. "Welcome to the 3rd annual Lance Wallace Foundation Gala." My father's voice boomed through the microphone. "I'm Reginald Wallace, and along with my wife Beatrice, I'm honoured to serve on the Foundation's board of directors." Polite applause. I noticed the 3 men had positioned themselves near different exits. "Tonight, we celebrate the incredible young women who have received scholarships this year," my father continued, "but we also celebrate the spirit of renewal and positive change." "Here we go," Jeffrey murmured. "As many of you know, my daughter Maria founded this foundation after the tragic loss of her husband Lance. Her dedication and passion have been truly inspiring." More applause. Several people at my table smiled at me. I smiled back, my hands steady on my napkin. However, the board has recently made some difficult decisions about the Foundation's future leadership. We believe that for the Foundation to continue growing and serving our community, we need fresh perspective and renewed energy. The applause was more scattered now. People were starting to sense something was wrong. Therefore, effective immediately, Maria will be stepping back from her role as director to focus on her personal healing and recovery. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw confusion on faces, whispered conversations starting at tables throughout the ballroom. Stella Hall, one of our most dedicated board members, will be serving as interim director while we conduct a search for permanent leadership. Stella stood and waved awkwardly. The applause was polite but confused. We're also excited to announce some new initiatives that will expand the Foundation's impact beyond scholarships. We'll be exploring partnerships with established businesses and investment opportunities that will grow our endowment significantly. Translation: "They're going to loot the accounts," Jeffrey whispered. My father smiled broadly. "Now, I'd like to invite Maria to the stage to say a few words about this exciting transition." The spotlight swung to my table. 300 faces turned toward me. The 3 men by the exits straightened. I stood slowly, my heart hammering. This was it. The moment that would either destroy everything or set it free. Actually, Dad, I have quite a few words to say. I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The crowd was dead silent now, sensing drama. My father's smile faltered as I climbed the steps. Maria, perhaps we should keep this brief. No, I don't think we should. I took the microphone from his hand. In fact, I think it's time everyone knew the whole truth about the Lance Wallace Foundation. My mother half rose from her chair. Maria, what are you doing? I'm doing what Lance would have wanted me to do. I looked out at the crowd, at the scholarship recipients in the front rows, at the donors who had trusted us with their money. I'm telling the truth. Maria, please, Stella started. The truth about where our funding really came from, the truth about this family, the truth about why my husband's father died broke and disgraced. My father lunged for the microphone, but I stepped back. Security moved toward the stage, but Jeffrey was already on his feet. The truth about how the Wallace family fortune was built on theft, lies, and the destruction of innocent people. The ballroom erupted, voices raised, chairs scraping, cameras flashing. The three men by the exits were moving now, pushing through the crowd. My mother's face had gone completely white. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I pulled the envelope from my clutch and held it up. I'm exposing 25 years of fraud, embezzlement and cover-ups, starting with the money you stole from Wilfred Wallace, my husband's father. The crowd was on its feet now, some people heading for the exits, others pushing closer to the stage. Reporters were shouting questions. The scholarship recipients looked confused and frightened. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, my voice cutting through the chaos. Let me tell you a story about karma, justice, and what happens when you build your empire on someone else's grave. My father made one more grab for the microphone. Security! Get her off the stage! But it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no putting it back. Security! Stand down! Jeffrey's voice boomed across the ballroom as he flashed his credentials. This is a legal matter now. The security guards hesitated, looking between Jeffrey and my father. The crowd pressed closer to the stage, phones recording everything. Maria, get down from there right now, my mother hissed, but her usual commanding presence had cracked. She looked terrified. No, Mom, I'm just getting started. I turned back to the microphone. 25 years ago, my father Reginald entered into a business partnership with a man named Wilfred Wallace. Over the course of 2 years, my father systematically embezzled funds from their joint accounts. This is slander, my father shouted, but his voice shook. When Wilfred discovered the theft, he filed a complaint with the authorities. But before the investigation could proceed, Wilfred died of a heart attack brought on by the stress of losing everything he'd worked for. A reporter in the front row was frantically taking notes. Mrs. Wallace, do you have proof of these allegations? I held up the envelope. Financial records spanning 25 years, bank transfers, forged documents, falsified partnership agreements, all of it. Those are private family documents. My mother stood up, her composure finally shattered. You have no right. I have every right. This foundation was built with stolen money. Every scholarship we've awarded, every life we've changed, it all started with money taken from a man who died believing he'd failed his family. The three men who'd been watching the exits were now pushing through the crowd toward the stage. One of them caught my eye and nodded grimly. But here's the part that really makes this story special, I continued, my voice growing stronger. Wilfred Wallace wasn't just my father's business partner, he was my husband's father. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Several scholarship recipients in the front row looked stunned. That's right. The Lance Wallace Foundation, named for my beloved husband, was funded by money stolen from Lance's own father. The man who died, heartbroken, never knowing that his son would one day marry the daughter of the man who destroyed him. Maria, stop this! Stella was on her feet now. You're destroying everything we've built. Everything we built was a lie, I shot back. Every dollar in our accounts can be traced back to that original theft. We're not philanthropists, we're money launderers. One of the men from the exits had reached the stage. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold eyes. "Miss Wallace, I think we need to talk." "And you are?" "Someone who worked with Wilfred Wallace, someone who's been waiting 25 years for this conversation." My father's face went ashen. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "Collecting a debt, Reginald, a very old debt." The crowd was in chaos now. Some people were leaving, others were recording everything on their phones. The reporters were having a field day. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the microphone, "meet Marcus Kane, one of Wilfred's former associates, the man who's been orchestrating my sister's gambling debts." Marcus smiled coldly. "Your sister made her own choices, Miss Wallace. We just made sure she had plenty of opportunities to make bad ones." "You targeted her because of me." "We targeted her because justice delayed is not justice denied. Your father stole $2 million from Wilfred Wallace. With interest, that debt is now worth considerably more." "How much more?" Jeffrey called out from the crowd. $3 million, exactly the amount currently sitting in the Foundation's accounts. The pieces clicked into place. "You've been planning this for years." "We've been waiting for the right moment, when your sister's debts reached critical mass, when your family was desperate enough to raid the Foundation, when the stolen money could finally be returned to its rightful owners." "The rightful owners are dead," my mother said desperately. "Wilfred had other children, Mrs. Wallace. Children who grew up in poverty because their father lost everything to your husband's greed." I looked out at the crowd, at the scholarship recipients who were hearing that their futures had been built on stolen money, at the donors who trusted us with their contributions. "So what happens now?" I asked Marcus. "Now you have a choice. Transfer the Foundation's assets to us as restitution for the original theft, or we'll take your sister as collateral until the debt is paid." "You can't be serious." $300,000 in gambling debts was just the down payment, Miss Wallace. Your sister owes us much more than that now." "How much more?" $2.7 million. Funny how numbers work out sometimes. The crowd was dead silent now, everyone straining to hear this impossible conversation. "And if I refuse?" Marcus's smile was ice cold. "Then your sister disappears, and we take the Foundation's assets anyway through legal channels. We have documentation of the original theft, proof of the money trail, and testimony from witnesses who are still alive." "You're talking about extortion." "I'm talking about justice. Your father destroyed Wilfred Wallace and his family. Now it's time to pay the price." I looked at my parents, both of them pale and shaking, at Stella, who was staring at me with horror and understanding, at the scholarship recipients who were realizing their dreams might be built on a foundation of lies. "There's a third option," I said finally. "Which is?" I pulled out my phone and held it up. "I call the FBI and tell them everything, about the original theft, about your extortion scheme, about all of it." Marcus laughed. "And destroy the Foundation in the process? Ruin the lives of all these young women who depend on scholarships? I don't think you have it in you." "You don't know me very well." "I know you've spent 3 years building something beautiful out of something ugly. Are you really willing to destroy it all for the sake of principle?" I looked out at the crowd one more time, at the faces of people who'd trusted me, who'd believed in what we were doing. "Yes," I said, "I am." I dialed 911 right there on stage, holding the phone up to the microphone so everyone could hear. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is Maria Wallace at the Grandview Hotel. I need to report extortion, fraud, and threats of kidnapping in progress." Marcus stepped back, his confident smile faltering. "You're making a mistake." "The mistake was made 25 years ago. I'm just cleaning it up." "Ma'am, are you in immediate danger?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes, there are men here threatening to kidnap my sister if I don't transfer $3 million to them." The ballroom erupted again. People were streaming toward the exits now, but the reporters stayed, cameras rolling. "Maria, hang up the phone," my father pleaded. "We can work this out privately." "Privately? Like you work things out privately with Wilfred? Like you've been working things out privately with these criminals for months? Units are en route, the dispatcher said. Stay on the line. Marcus gestured to his associates, who started moving toward the stage exits. But Jeffrey was already there with hotel security. Nobody leaves, Jeffrey announced. This is now a crime scene. You have no authority here, one of Marcus's men said. Actually, I do. Jeffrey held up his phone. I've been recording this entire conversation. Extortion, conspiracy, admission of orchestrating gambling addiction. It's all here. Where's Tessa? I suddenly realized my sister was nowhere to be seen. Marcus smiled coldly. Safe, for now. What does that mean? It means you have about 10 minutes before my associates get impatient. Sirens wailed outside the hotel. The crowd was thinning, but the core group remained: scholarship recipients, major donors, reporters, and my family. Maria, Stella approached the stage, her face pale. I need to tell you something. What? I've been investigating the foundation's finances independently. After your father approached me about the vote of no confidence, something felt wrong. What did you find? The same things you did, but also more. She pulled out her own folder. Your father didn't just steal from Wilfred once. He's been skimming from the foundation for 3 years. What? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Small amounts, transferred to offshore accounts, about 50,000 a year. That's impossible, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. The transfers are all here, Reginald. Your signature, your authorization codes. Police officers flooded into the ballroom, followed by FBI agents in suits. The lead agent approached the stage. I'm Agent Rodriguez. We got a call about extortion and kidnapping threats. That would be me. I handed him my phone, still connected to 911. And these are the men making the threats. Marcus raised his hands slowly. This is all a misunderstanding, Agent Rodriguez. We're simply trying to recover stolen property. By threatening to kidnap someone? We never threatened— I have it all on recording, Jeffrey interrupted, holding up his phone. Explicit threats against Tessa Wallace if the Foundation's assets aren't transferred. Where is Tessa Wallace now? Agent Rodriguez asked. We don't know, I said. These men claim to have her. Marcus's associate whispered something in his ear. Marcus nodded grimly. She's safe, Marcus said finally. She's at a private facility getting the help she needs for her gambling addiction. What facility? One that specializes in people who owe significant debts to the wrong people. You mean a prison? Agent Rodriguez said flatly. I mean a place where she can't make her situation worse while we work out a payment plan. Agent Rodriguez, I said, I want to make a full confession. Everyone turned to stare at me. Maria, don't! My mother pleaded. The Lance Wallace Foundation was built with money stolen from Wilfred Wallace 25 years ago. My father embezzled $2 million from their business partnership. When Wilfred tried to report it, he died of a heart attack from the stress. Maria, stop talking, Jeffrey warned. No, this ends now, all of it. I turned to Agent Rodriguez. I want immunity in exchange for full cooperation in prosecuting everyone involved. My father for the original theft, these men for extortion and kidnapping, and anyone else who's been part of this conspiracy. You can't be serious, my father said. I'm dead serious. The foundation will be dissolved. The assets will be returned to Wilfred's surviving family members. The scholarship recipients will be protected through a new, clean organization. What about us? My mother asked, tears streaming down her face. What about you? You've been living off stolen money for 25 years. You tried to force me to steal more to cover Tessa's debts. You voted me out of my own foundation so you could loot it. We're your parents. You're criminals, and I'm done protecting you. Agent Rodriguez was taking notes rapidly. Ms. Wallace, this is a very serious decision. Once you make this statement officially— I understand. I want to do what's right. Finally. Marcus stepped forward. Agent Rodriguez, we're willing to cooperate fully in exchange for the return of the stolen funds and assurance that Tessa Wallace receives proper treatment for her addiction. Where is she? Marcus nodded to one of his associates who made a phone call. After a brief conversation, he hung up. She's being released now. She'll be here within the hour. This is insane, my father said. Maria, you're destroying everything we've built. Everything we built was a lie, Dad. Every dollar, every success, every moment of pride. It was all based on money stolen from a man who died broken and betrayed. The scholarship recipients in the front row were crying now. These young women who'd been counting on our support, who'd seen their futures in our mission. What happens to them? I asked Agent Rodriguez, gesturing to the scholarship recipients. That's not really my area, Ma'am. I looked out at their faces, hopeful, scared, confused. I promise you, I said into the microphone, every one of you will get the support you were promised, from a clean foundation with clean money built on truth instead of lies. How? One of them called out. Because I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this right. Agent Rodriguez closed his notebook. Ms. Wallace, I think we need to continue this conversation at the Federal Building. I'm ready. As they led me toward the exit, I caught sight of my parents. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. My mother was sobbing into her hands. For the first time in 3 years, I felt free. The federal courthouse was buzzing with reporters when I walked out after giving my testimony. Jeffrey waited by his car, looking exhausted but relieved. How do you feel? He asked as we drove away from the chaos. Like I can breathe for the first time in years. My phone had been ringing non-stop. Reporters, donors, board members, family, friends, everyone wanted answers. I turned it off. Where to? Jeffrey asked. The cemetery. I need to talk to Lance. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the headstones. I knelt beside Lance's grave, brushing fallen leaves from the marble. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out the truth. I'm sorry your father died thinking he was a failure. I'm sorry our foundation was built on his pain. The wind rustled through the oak trees. For a moment, I could almost hear Lance's voice telling me I'd done the right thing. My phone buzzed. A text from Savannah. Turn on Channel 7 News now. I walked back to Jeffrey's car and asked him to turn on the radio. Federal agents arrested Reginald Wallace this afternoon on charges of embezzlement, fraud and conspiracy. His wife, Beatrice, was also taken into custody as an accessory. The couple's daughter, Maria Wallace, cooperated fully with authorities in exchange for immunity. Jeffrey turned it off. You sure you're ready for this? I'm sure. We drove to the foundation office. The building looked the same, but everything felt different. Savannah was waiting in the lobby with a stack of papers. The FBI released the accounts, she said. All $3 million is being held in escrow pending the court's decision on restitution. Good. What about the scholarship recipients? That's the interesting part. After the news broke, we got calls from 12 major donors offering to fund a new foundation. Clean money, no strings attached. 12? Including some people you've never met. Apparently, your speech at the gala went viral. People are calling it the most honest thing they've ever heard from a non-profit leader. Jeffrey handed me his phone. The video had been viewed over 2 million times. The comments were brutal toward my parents, but surprisingly supportive of me. There's more, Savannah continued. 3 of Wilfred's surviving children reached out. They want to meet with you. They do? They said they never knew what really happened to their father. They thought he'd failed in business and died of shame. Learning the truth, it gave them closure. A knock on the office door interrupted us. A young woman in her 20s stood outside, holding a bouquet of flowers. Ms. Wallace, I'm Jennifer. I received a scholarship from the foundation last year. I opened the door. Jennifer, I'm so sorry about everything that's happened. I know this must be confusing. Actually, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For telling the truth, for risking everything to do what was right. My scholarship money is helping me get through medical school, and knowing it came from someone who was willing to sacrifice everything for honesty, that means more than you know. She handed me the flowers. These are from all 47 scholarship recipients. We took up a collection to start the new foundation. It's not much, only $3,000, but it's clean money, our money. I started crying. You don't understand. The foundation might not survive this scandal. The foundation will survive because you made sure it would. You chose truth over family, justice over comfort. That's the kind of leader we want to follow. More people were gathering outside the office. Donors, volunteers, community members. Some held signs reading Truth Matters and Justice for Wilfred. There's something else, Geoffrey said quietly. Marcus and his associates were arrested, but they're cooperating fully. Turns out they weren't just criminals, they were Wilfred's former employees who'd been trying to clear his name for decades. What about Tessa? She's in a real treatment facility now. Court-ordered, but she says she's grateful. She left you a message. He handed me a handwritten note. Maria, I'm sorry for everything. You saved my life by refusing to enable me. I hope someday I can be as brave as you. Love, Tessa. Savannah opened the office door. Maria, there are reporters here. They want to know about the new foundation. I looked at the crowd gathering outside, at the flowers from the scholarship recipients, at the note from my sister, at Geoffrey and Savannah, who'd stood by me when my own family wouldn't. Tell them the truth, I said. Tell them we're starting over. Clean slate, clean money, clean conscience. What about your parents? What about them? They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. And you? What do you get to live with? I thought about Lance, about the 47 young women whose futures were secure, about Wilfred's children finally knowing their father hadn't failed them. I get to live with the truth, finally. The reporters were setting up cameras outside. In a few minutes, I'd have to face them, answer their questions, explain how a foundation built on stolen money could become something honest and good. But first, I had one more call to make. Hello, is this Wilfred's daughter Sarah? This is Maria Wallace. I think it's time we talked. As I dialed the number, I realised something had changed. The weight I'd been carrying for 3 years, the grief, the guilt, the sense that something was fundamentally wrong, was finally gone. I wasn't just Lance's widow anymore. I wasn't just the daughter of criminals or the sister of an addict. I was someone who'd chosen truth over comfort, justice over family loyalty, and the future over the past. And for the first time since Lance died, that felt like enough. The phone rang, and Sarah answered. Hello? Hi, Sarah. I have some things to tell you about your father, and some things to make right. Outside, the cameras were rolling. The story was just beginning, but this time it would be the whole truth.
The annual Wong family reunion always felt like walking into a minefield, but this year the explosions would be different. I just didn't know it yet. I'm Jordan, and I was running late. Again. The familiar driveway of my parents' suburban home was already lined with luxury cars, Oakley's pearl-white Tesla commanding the prime spot nearest the door. Of course. Jordan, you made it. My mother rushed forward as I entered, her silk dress swishing. Her smile was genuine, but tinged with that familiar worry. Oakley's been asking where you were. I bet she has, I thought, smoothing down my simple blue sundress. Traffic was terrible, Mom. Sorry I'm late. When isn't she late? Oakley's voice carried across the room like a perfectly aimed arrow. My sister glided over, champagne in hand, looking every bit the successful real estate agent in her designer outfit. But I guess that's what happens when you take the bus. I drove, actually, I said, forcing a smile. The hospital parking is expensive, but the nurse's lot has some perks. Oh, right, still doing that nursing thing? Oakley's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. Brian and I just closed on our 4th investment property this year. You should really think about your future, sis. Before I could respond, my father appeared. Oakley, sweetheart, tell everyone about that new development deal. I watched as she commanded the room's attention, something she'd perfected since childhood. My cousin Jeremy caught my eye from across the room and gave me a sympathetic smile. Everyone, Oakley clinked her glass. I have an announcement. The room hushed. I grabbed a glass of wine from a passing tray, already knowing this wouldn't be good. Brian and I are looking at the most amazing vacation property in the Hamptons. She gushed. It's absolutely perfect. Private beach access, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool. She paused dramatically. Of course, not everyone can afford such investments. Jordan, didn't you mention you were having money troubles? The room went silent. I froze, wine glass halfway to my lips. I never said that. I managed. Oh, come on. Oakley pressed, her smile sharp. I saw those collection notices in your mailbox when I dropped by last month. No shame in admitting you're struggling. We can't all be successful. Heat crept up my neck as relatives shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face fell, and my father looked anywhere but at me. I'm doing fine, Oakley, I said quietly. Fine. Sweetie, you live in a tiny apartment and take the bus. It's okay to admit you need help. That's what family's for. Her voice dripped with fake concern. Brian, her husband, laughed nervously. Oak, maybe we should... No, really, she continued. Jordan's always been the practical one. Some people just aren't meant for bigger things. That's when something inside me snapped, not in a dramatic, visible way. Instead, it was like a quiet click, the sound of a lock turning, a plan falling into place. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and said nothing. Jordan? My mother ventured, concerned by my silence. Oakley's right, I said finally, my voice steady. Some people aren't meant for bigger things. They're meant for smarter things. My sister's smile faltered slightly. Excuse me, I said, pulling out my phone as it buzzed. Work emergency. As I stepped onto the back porch, I saw Guy's message. Everything's set. The papers are signed. I looked through the window at my family. At Oakley holding court, at my parents beaming at their successful daughter, at the relatives who'd watched this dynamic play out for years. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my real estate agent. Congratulations, the Hampton house is yours. I smiled, thinking of Oakley's face when she'd announced her plans for that very same house. She had no idea I'd been quietly watching her social media posts about it for months. No idea I'd been building my wealth slowly and strategically while she flaunted hers. No idea that her perfect vacation home dream had just been purchased by her struggling little sister. I typed back quickly. Perfect. Don't let anyone know about the sale yet. The party continued inside, laughter and chatter floating through the windows. I stayed on the porch a moment longer, savoring the calm before the storm I was about to create. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with perfect timing. You're actually insane, Guy said, stirring his coffee as we sat in our usual corner of the hospital cafeteria. Like, actually certifiably insane. And I love it. 3 days had passed since the family reunion, and I was still riding the high of my secret purchase. 7 years of night shifts and living below my means had to pay off sometime. But the Hamptons house? That's next level petty. He leaned forward, grinning. Tell me everything. I pulled out my phone, showing him the listing photos. 6 bedrooms, private beach access, and the infinity pool Oakley wouldn't shut up about on Instagram. The same one she's been posting about for months? The very same. I swiped through more photos. Remember when I started picking up extra shifts 4 years ago? When Oakley told everyone at Christmas dinner that nursing was a backup career for people who couldn't hack medical school? I nodded. That's when I started seriously investing. Every extra shift, every bonus, straight into my portfolio. While she was posting about her designer handbags, I was meeting with financial advisors. And nobody knew? Why would they? Oakley made sure everyone saw me as the struggling little sister. It was the perfect cover. My phone buzzed, a text from Jeremy. Oak's posting about the house again. You seeing this? I opened Instagram. There was Oakley, posed in front of the house during what must have been her viewing, caption reading, "Dreams do come true. Can't wait to make this paradise ours. Blessed Israel luxury, real estate." Guy nearly choked on his coffee. She doesn't know? The seller's agent is keeping it quiet at my request. She thinks she's getting it. Jordan. A sharp voice cut through our conversation. Dr. Martinez hurried over. Multiple car pileup coming in. We need all hands. I grabbed my coffee. Back to reality. Dinner tonight? Wouldn't miss it. This is better than Netflix. The next 12 hours were a blur of trauma patients, surgical assists, and paperwork. By the time I got to Guy's apartment, I was exhausted but wired. "Your timing is incredible," he said, handing me a glass of wine as I collapsed onto his couch. "Look what just came in the mail." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a development company, offering to buy my new property for significantly more than I'd paid. "They're building a resort complex," Guy explained. "They've been trying to buy up properties in that area." I stared at the number. It was enough to double my investment instantly. "You're not considering it, are you?" Guy asked, reading my expression. "No way. This isn't about money." I set the letter down. "You weren't there for my graduation." "The nursing ceremony? I thought your family went." "They did. Oakley showed up late, talked through my speech, then spent the whole dinner talking about her new real estate license. When I mentioned I'd graduated top of my class, she said, 'That's cute, but let's talk about real achievements.'" Guy winced. "Your parents?" "Dad asked Oakley for investment advice. Mom just wanted everyone to get along." I took a long sip of wine. "That's been my whole life. Oakley shines, I fade into the background, but not anymore." My phone lit up with a family group chat notification. Oakley had sent a message. "Big news coming soon. Family dinner at my place this weekend to celebrate." "She thinks she's getting the house," Guy said, reading over my shoulder. "She thinks a lot of things." I showed him my banking app, where years of careful saving and investing had built a surprisingly robust portfolio. Nobody ever asked how I could afford to live alone in the city on a nurse's salary. They just assumed I was struggling. Because that's what Oakley told them to think. Exactly. I forwarded the development company's letter to my email. You know what the best part is? I learned everything about real estate investment from listening to her brag about it at family gatherings. Every strategy, every market trend. She taught me everything I needed to know to beat her at her own game. Guy's phone buzzed. He laughed. "Jeremy wants to know if you're coming to Oakley's dinner." "Wouldn't miss it." I pulled up the property documents on my phone. The closing papers should be finalized by Friday. Just in time for her announcement. Just in time, I agreed, thinking about the look on Oakley's face when she realized her dream house announcement was about to turn into my victory lap. Another text came through, this time from my mother. "Oakley says you haven't RSVP'd for Saturday. Please come, sweetheart. Family should stick together." I smiled as I typed my response. "Don't worry, Mom. I wouldn't miss this for the world." Saturday arrived with the weight of anticipation. I pulled up to Oakley's McMansion just as Jeremy was getting out of his car. "Perfect timing," he said, falling into step beside me. "You ready for whatever this is?" "More ready than she is," I muttered, clutching my purse with its hidden envelope. Inside, Oakley's house was a shrine to her supposed success. All chrome and white surfaces, designer everything. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated to show her best angles. "Jordan," Brian greeted me with his usual warmth. "Oak's in the kitchen. She's been cooking all day." "She cooks now?" Jeremy whispered as we walked through. "She orders in and transfers it to her own dishes," I whispered back. "Always has." The kitchen was a flurry of activity. Oakley stood at the island, arranging takeout containers' contents onto serving platters while my mother helped. Empty bags from an upscale catering service were poorly hidden in the trash. "Jordan, you came." Oakley's smile was bright but didn't reach her eyes. "I was just telling Mom about the amazing news." "Can't wait to hear it," I said, accepting a glass of wine from Brian. "Oh, you're going to love it. It's life-changing." She straightened a platter of what I recognized as the local bistro's signature appetizers. Unlike some people, I believe in growing and advancing. My mother shot me an apologetic look. The doorbell rang again. My father arrived with Guy, who I'd invited as moral support. Oakley's eyebrows raised slightly at his presence. "Still hanging out with hospital people?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. "Still pretending you cook?" I countered quietly, nodding toward the hidden takeout containers. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Brian called everyone to the dining room. "Before we eat," Oakley announced, standing at the head of the table. "I have amazing news to share." She gripped Brian's hand. "As you know, we've been looking at the most gorgeous property in the Hamptons." I felt Guy squeeze my knee under the table. "And after some very exclusive negotiations," she continued, "we are absolutely thrilled to announce—" "Actually," Brian interrupted, checking his phone with a frown. "Honey, I just got an email from our agent." "Not now, sweetie. As I was saying, Oak, the house sold. To someone else." The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" Oakley's voice was sharp. "That's impossible. Check again." "It sold 2 days ago. The agent says the new owner wants to remain anonymous for now." Oakley's face flushed red. "But we had an agreement. We were going to announce—" "We had a viewing, Oak. We never made an offer. Because they promised to hold it for us." I took a slow sip of wine, watching my sister's perfect facade crack. "Well," my father said, clearly trying to salvage the moment, "there will be other properties, sweetheart." "No." Oakley slammed her hand on the table, making the plates rattle. "That was our house. My house. I already told everyone." She stopped, noticing my calm expression. "Why aren't you more upset about this?" "Why would I be upset?" Because you're supposed to be happy for me. You're supposed to be jealous." Jeremy choked on his wine. "Oak," Brian said softly, "maybe we should take a minute." "No. This was supposed to be perfect. I was going to show everyone." She trailed off, her carefully constructed image crumbling. "Show everyone what?" I asked, my voice steady. "How successful I am. How much better." She caught herself, but not before our parents exchanged worried glances. "Better than who, Oakley?" She didn't answer, but her glare said everything. "Dinner's getting cold," my mother interjected weakly. "You know what's interesting?" I said, reaching for my purse. "Success isn't always about who shouts the loudest." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means—" I pulled out my phone, pulling up the property photos. "Sometimes the quiet ones surprise you." "Jordan," Guy warned softly, but I was done being quiet. "Remember when you told everyone I was probably going bankrupt?" I slid my phone across the table. Funny thing about that, Oakley grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the familiar photos of her dream house. Her dream house with my name on the deed. "This is a joke," she whispered. "The closing papers arrived yesterday," I said, pulling the envelope from my purse. "Would you like to see them?" The room erupted in chaos. Brian was staring at me in disbelief. My father was demanding explanations, and my mother had her head in her hands. But all I could see was Oakley's face, the exact moment she realized her struggling little sister had beaten her at her own game. "How?" she managed finally. I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Maybe we should talk about real achievements." "This isn't possible," Oakley kept saying, flipping through the closing papers with trembling hands. "You can't afford this. You're a nurse." "A nurse who knows how to invest," I replied. "You taught me that, remember? All those family dinners where you talked about market trends and property values?" Brian leaned over Oakley's shoulder, examining the documents. "These are legitimate. She really bought it. But—" my father started, then stopped, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "Jordan, how long have you been planning this?" "Planning?" I laughed. "I just saw an investment opportunity and took it." "Isn't that what you always praised Oakley for doing?" My sister's face had gone from red to white. "You did this to spite me." "Did I? Or did you just assume nobody else could achieve what you wanted to achieve?" "Girls," my mother pleaded, "please don't fight." "We're not fighting, Mom," I said, taking another sip of wine. "We're having a business discussion. Isn't that right, Oakley?" Jeremy cleared his throat. "Maybe we should eat before everything gets cold." "How?" Oakley demanded, ignoring him. "Where did you get the money?" "You really want to know?" I pulled out my phone again, opening my investment portfolio. "Every time you mocked my career, I picked up an extra shift. Every time you bragged about your success, I invested more. Do you know how much night shift differential adds up to over 7 years? But your apartment, the bus, is in an up-and-coming neighborhood that's tripled in value since I bought it. And I take the bus because parking at the hospital costs a fortune. It's called being practical, Guy spoke up. Jordan's one of the highest-paid nurses in the trauma department. She's been published in medical journals. That's enough, Oakley snapped. She turned to Brian. Call our lawyer. There has to be a way to contest this. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Oak, we never made an offer. We have no legal grounds to... Then make some. This is our house. No, I said quietly. It's my house. And I think you're having trouble with that because you never thought I could be competition. The room fell silent again. My father was staring at his plate. My mother was close to tears, and Jeremy was trying very hard not to smile. Competition? Oakley laughed, but it sounded hollow. This isn't about competition. This is about you trying to steal my dream. Your dream? I stood up, placing both hands on the table. Let's talk about dreams, Oakley. Let's talk about my graduation ceremony, where you showed up late and talked through my speech. Or the time I got promoted to head trauma nurse, and you told everyone it was cute that I was playing doctor. Or how about last month's reunion? When you tried to humiliate me in front of our entire family? That's different. I was trying to help. Help? Guy interjected. By spreading rumors about her finances? Stay out of this, Oakley snapped. This is family business. He is family, I said firmly. He's been more supportive than you ever were. Brian suddenly stood up. Oak, we need to talk. Now. About what? About the credit card statements I found. About the real reason we couldn't make an offer on the house. The color drained from Oakley's face. Brian, not now. Yes, now. He turned to the rest of us. I'm sorry, everyone. We need a minute. They disappeared into the kitchen, but their heated whispers carried back to the dining room. Should we? My mother gestured vaguely at the food. Actually, I said, gathering my things. I should go. I have contractors meeting me at my new house tomorrow morning to discuss renovations. Jordan, my father said suddenly, his voice rough. Wait. I paused, purse in hand. I'm sorry. We should have paid more attention. To what, Dad? To my achievements? To the fact that I was building something while Oakley was just talking about building something? From the kitchen, Oakley's voice rose. I was going to pay it back. $60,000 in secret credit card debt? Brian shot back. When were you planning to tell me? My mother's hands flew to her mouth. Jeremy whistled low. I think, Guy said, standing up. That's our cue to leave. As we walked to our cars, the sounds of Oakley and Brian's argument followed us into the night air. Jeremy caught up with us in the driveway. That, he said, was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's not over, I replied, looking back at the house. This was just the beginning. What do you mean? I smiled, pulling out my keys. The contractors aren't just doing renovations tomorrow. They're doing an assessment for that resort development company. Guy's eyes widened. You're not... Like I said, I learned from the best. Sometimes the biggest deals happen in stages. The next morning, I stood on the private beach of my new property, watching the waves roll in as contractors walked the perimeter. The resort development company's representative, Sarah, stood beside me with a tablet in hand. The location is perfect, she said. Your property is the key piece we need to complete the resort complex. And the offer? She showed me the number on her tablet. It was triple what I'd paid. That's just the starting point, she added. We're also offering a lifetime membership to the resort once it's built, plus... My phone buzzed. Oakley's name flashed on the screen for the 5th time that morning. I declined the call. Everything okay? Sarah asked. Family drama, nothing unusual. I gestured toward the house. Tell me more about your plans for the property. As she launched into details about the resort complex, another call came through, this time from Jeremy. "You need to check Instagram," he said when I answered. "Oakley's having a meltdown." I pulled up the app. Oakley had posted a series of stories, each more unhinged than the last. The latest showed her crying in her car. Family betrayal is the worst kind. Can't believe my own sister would do this to me. "Ms. Wong?" Sarah was waiting expectantly. "Sorry, what were you saying about the beachfront access?" Before she could answer, a familiar Tesla came roaring up the private drive. "Oh no," I muttered as Oakley emerged, designer sunglasses hiding what I assumed were puffy eyes. "We need to talk," she shouted, marching across the sand. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Should I give you a moment?" "No need." I turned to face my sister. "Oakley, I'm in a business meeting." "Business meeting?" She laughed hysterically. "Is that what you call destroying your family?" The contractors paused their work, watching the scene unfold. "The only thing being destroyed is your illusion of superiority," I said calmly. "Now, if you'll excuse us, Brian's leaving me." That stopped me cold. "What?" He found out about everything. The credit cards, the shopping, the lies about our investments. She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing mascara-streaked cheeks. "He's staying at his brother's house. Are you happy now?" Sarah cleared her throat. "I can come back another time." "No," I said firmly. "Oakley's leaving." "You can't just—" "Actually, I can. This is private property. My private property. And you're trespassing." "Your property?" She gestured wildly at the house. This was supposed to be mine. My dream house, my perfect life. Perfect life? I stepped closer. "You mean the one you built on credit cards and lies? The one where you had to put everyone else down to feel superior?" "I never—" "Remember my first apartment? You told everyone I lived in a dangerous neighborhood because I couldn't afford better. That neighborhood is now the hottest real estate market in the city. Jordan, or when I got my first promotion. You said nursing was a dead-end job. Well, guess what? While you were maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances, I was investing my dead-end salary." Sarah's tablet pinged. She glanced at it, then at me. "Ms. Wong, the board just approved a higher offer." Oakley's eyes darted to the tablet. "What offer?" "None of your business," I said, but Oakley had already snatched the tablet. Her face went pale as she read. "A resort complex? You're selling to developers?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'll keep it and rent it out. Or maybe I'll just let it sit empty. The point is, it's my decision." "You can't." "I can. And you know what the best part is?" I took the tablet back. "I learned everything about real estate from you. Every boast, every brag about your investments. I was listening, taking notes, learning." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm your sister. Yes, you are. And for years I watched you succeed while you made sure everyone saw me fail. Now you get to watch me succeed." "Ms. Wong?" Sarah gestured toward the house. "The contractors need your input on the renovation plans." I turned to go, then paused. "You know what's ironic, Oakley? If you'd ever bothered to actually be a sister instead of a competitor, we could have done amazing things together." "Please," she whispered. "Don't do this. Security will escort you out," I said, nodding to the property guards who were already approaching. "Don't come back unless you're invited." As I walked away, I heard her call out, "Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this." I turned back one last time. Maybe not, but for the first time in my life, I forgive myself for letting you make me feel small. The sound of the waves drowned out her response as I walked toward my house, with Sarah and the contractors. Behind me, I heard the guards politely but firmly escorting Oakley back to her car. Sometimes karma needs a little help, I thought. And sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding on your own terms. "Your mother's called 6 times, Guy said, setting a coffee in front of me in the hospital break room. "Jeremy says Oakley's moved back in with your parents. A week had passed since the confrontation at the beach house. I'd been pulling extra shifts to avoid the family drama, but it was catching up to me. Dad left a voicemail, I said, checking my phone. Something about fixing the family and being the bigger person. Are you going to call him back? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Brian. Can we meet? There's something you need to know. That's new, Guy said, reading over my shoulder. You going to do it? I typed back. Coffee shop across from the hospital. 30 minutes. Brian was already there when I arrived, looking exhausted in a wrinkled suit. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I know things are messy right now. That's one word for it. He pulled out a folder. You need to see these before you make any decisions about the property. Inside were credit card statements, loan documents, and bank records, all with Oakley's name. She's underwater, Brian said quietly. The designer clothes, the fancy cars, the image she created, it's all debt. She was counting on that house to fix everything. How? She was going to use it as collateral for a loan to pay off the credit cards. When that fell through, he ran a hand through his hair. I found out she'd been forging my signature on loan applications. My coffee went cold as I flipped through the documents. The numbers were staggering. Why are you showing me this? Because she's not just destroying herself. She's dragging your parents into it. They're talking about taking out a second mortgage to help her. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Family emergency meeting at your parents' house tonight. Oakley's idea. You coming? I showed Brian the message. She doesn't know I'm meeting you, he said. But Jordan, be careful. She's desperate. That evening, I pulled up to my parents' house to find it full again, but this time the atmosphere was heavy. Oakley sat on the couch, looking smaller without her usual designer outfit and perfect makeup. Jordan, my mother rushed forward. Thank goodness you came. What's this about? It's about family, my father said. About making things right. Oakley stood up, hands clasped in front of her. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About mistakes and consequences. Oakley, please let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I've hurt people, made bad choices, but I want to make it right. Starting with you, Jordan. Jeremy, sitting in the corner, caught my eye and shook his head slightly. I've been terrible to you, Oakley continued. Competitive, cruel, dismissive. And now I'm paying for it. But it's not just me suffering. Mom and Dad are taking out a second mortgage to cover your debts? I interrupted. The room went silent. How did you... My father started. Brian told me everything. I turned to my parents. Did she tell you about the forged loan applications? The maxed out credit cards? Jordan, please. My mother pleaded. She's trying to make amends. No, she's trying to manipulate you into bailing her out. Again. Oakley's facade cracked. You don't understand. I need help. What you need is consequences. We're putting up the house as collateral, my father said, just until she gets back on her feet. Dad, no. You can't risk everything you've worked for. She's our daughter. So am I. The words echoed in the sudden silence. But you never mortgaged your house when I was starting out. You never rushed to rescue me when things were hard. That's different, my mother said weakly. Why? Because I didn't cry and manipulate? Because I solved my own problems? Oakley stepped forward. If you sell the beach house to those developers, I could... There it is, I laughed. The real reason for this family meeting. You want my house. It could save all of us. Pay off my debts, save Mom and Dad's house. Your debts, not ours, not mine. I grabbed my purse. And that house? It's not for sale. Not to the developers, and certainly not to fix your mistakes. Jordan, wait. My father called as I headed for the door. I turned back one last time. You know what the difference is between Oakley and me? I learned from my mistakes. She just expects everyone else to fix them. The door closed behind me, cutting off their protests. In my car, I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. "About that resort offer," I said. "I've made my decision." 2 weeks later, I stood in the newly renovated living room of the beach house, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of cars pulling up the driveway broke the peaceful moment. "They're here," Guy said, adjusting the appetizer trays we'd set out. "Ready?" Jeremy asked, handing me a glass of champagne. I nodded. "Time to end this." The doorbell rang. I'd invited the entire family, parents, Oakley, Brian, cousins, everyone, for what they thought was a housewarming party. They didn't know about the papers sitting on my desk, waiting to be signed. My mother entered first, clutching her purse like a shield. "Oh, Jordan, it's beautiful." "The renovations turned out perfectly," I said, watching Oakley's face as she took in the space that could have been hers. Brian hung back, avoiding his wife's gaze. They still weren't living together, according to Jeremy's updates. "Well," my father said, clearing his throat, "this is quite something." "It is, isn't it?" I gestured for everyone to sit. "But before we celebrate, there's something we need to discuss." Oakley's head snapped up. "You're selling to the developers?" "Not exactly." I picked up the folder from my desk. "I've created a trust." "A what?" my mother asked. "A family trust. The house will be its main asset." I started distributing copies of the paperwork. "I'm transferring ownership to the trust with specific conditions." Brian leaned forward, reading quickly. "This is unexpected. The house will serve as a family vacation property, available to all of us on a rotating schedule." I watched their faces as they read. "But there are rules." "Rules?" Oakley's voice was small. "First, the house can never be used as collateral for loans or sold without unanimous consent from all trust members. Second, usage rights are dependent on financial responsibility." "Meaning what?" my father asked. "Meaning anyone who wants to use the house must provide proof of financial stability. No outstanding debts, no legal issues, no hidden credit cards." Oakley's hands trembled as she held the papers. "Additionally," I continued, "I've arranged for financial counseling services, fully paid for by the trust, available to any family member who needs it." "Jordan," my mother started, tears in her eyes. "I'm not finished. The trust also includes a scholarship fund for future generations of our family, specifically for medical and nursing education." The room was silent as my words sank in. "Why?" Oakley finally asked. "Because despite everything, we're family, and families should lift each other up, not tear each other down." I met her eyes, but they also shouldn't enable destructive behavior. "The counseling services," Brian said slowly. "That's your condition for Oakley, isn't it?" I nodded. "Complete the program, get your finances in order, and you'll have equal access to the house. The same rules apply to everyone." "And Mom and Dad's mortgage?" Oakley asked. "Will remain their responsibility, but the trust includes provisions for emergency family assistance, with strict oversight and repayment terms." My father stood up abruptly. "I need some air." "Dad, no, let me speak." He turned to face me. "All these years I thought." He shook his head. "I was wrong about you, Jordan. So wrong." "We both were," my mother added, wiping her eyes. Oakley hadn't moved, still staring at the papers. "I don't deserve this." "No, you don't," I agreed. "But that's not the point. The point is giving all of us, a chance to do better." "The financial counseling," she said quietly. "When can I start?" "First session is scheduled for Monday, if you want it." She nodded, unable to speak. "There's one more thing," I said, pulling out a final document. "Brian, this is for you." He took the paper, eyes widening. "This is evidence of the forged loan applications. What you do with it is up to you." The room held its breath as Brian stared at the document, then at Oakley. Finally, he tore it in half. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said, "but only one." Oakley burst into tears. Now, I said, raising my glass, who's ready for that housewarming party? As the tension broke and people began to mingle, Jeremy pulled me aside. You planned this all along, didn't you? The trust, the counseling, everything? I smiled, watching my family move through the space. My mother examining the kitchen, my father out on the deck, Oakley and Brian talking quietly in a corner. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, I said. Sometimes it's being the person they never thought you could be. And sometimes, Guy added, joining us, it's showing them who you've been all along. Through the windows, the sun had set completely, leaving the beach in darkness. But inside, the house glowed with new beginnings and second chances. The autumn breeze carried the scent of salt and coffee as I sat on the beach house deck, reviewing financial reports. The Trust's first quarterly meeting was about to begin, and I wanted everything perfect. Need help with those? Oakley appeared, carrying 2 mugs. She looked different, simpler, but somehow more genuine without the designer facade. Thanks. I accepted the coffee. How was your counseling session? Good. Hard, but good. She sat down. Brian and I are talking about moving into a smaller place, something within our actual budget. That's great. It's weird, actually living within my means, but also freeing. She gestured at the papers. How's the trust doing? See for yourself. I handed her the reports. Your credit score is up 50 points. 62, actually. She smiled slightly. I check it obsessively now, part of the recovery program. The sliding door opened as our parents arrived, followed by Jeremy and Guy. Ready for the first official meeting? Jeremy asked, setting up his laptop. As the Trust's designated record keeper, he'd taken his role seriously. Before we start, my father said, I have something to say. Everyone turned to look at him. He pulled out an envelope. The bank approved our refinancing application. We're not taking the second mortgage. Dad, no, Jordan. You were right. We can't keep enabling destructive patterns. He looked at Oakley. For any of us. Oakley nodded, blinking back tears. Now, my mother said, pulling out her own folder. Shall we discuss the holiday rotation schedule? As they debated who would get the house for Thanksgiving, I noticed Brian hanging back, watching Oakley with cautious hope. The counselor thinks we might be ready to move back in together, Oakley said quietly, following my gaze. If we stick to our new budget. And the shopping? I unsubscribed from all the luxury marketing emails, deleted my shopping apps. She laughed softly. Turns out I don't need $400 sunglasses to be happy. All right, everyone, Jeremy called. First order of business, the scholarship fund. Actually, I interrupted, there's something else first. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email I'd received that morning. The resort developers made another offer. The deck went silent. Jordan, my mother started. You're not considering... No, but look at the last paragraph. They leaned in as I read aloud. In lieu of purchase, we propose a partnership. The trust maintains ownership while we develop and manage the adjacent properties. Your beach house would be the crown jewel of the coastline, increasing in value as the area develops. That's brilliant, Brian said, his real estate experience showing. The trust gets all the benefits of development without losing control. It's your decision, Oakley said softly. You earned this. No, I replied. It's our decision. That's what the trust is for. My father cleared his throat. I vote yes, for the Future Generations Fund. One by one, they voted. When it came to Oakley, she paused. I used to think success meant having everything I wanted, she said. Now I know it means being worthy of what you have. She looked at me. Yes. Then it's unanimous. Jeremy typed rapidly. I'll update the trust documents. Speaking of documents, Guy said, pulling out a newspaper. Show them, Jordan. I took the paper, opening to the healthcare section. There, under medical innovation, was a photo of me and my trauma team, highlighting our new emergency protocol that had reduced critical response times by 30%. My little sister, Oakley said, but this time there was no condescension in her voice, only pride. Not so little anymore, my father added. As the meeting continued, I watched my family. Really watched them. My parents learning to treat their daughters equally. Brian and Oakley rebuilding their marriage on honesty instead of appearances. Jeremy taking his role as family mediator seriously. Last item, Jeremy announced. The trust's mission statement needs approval. I stood up. I have a suggestion. Everyone turned to listen. The Wong Family Trust exists not to create wealth, but to create value. Not to enable, but to empower. Not to divide, but to unite. Through financial responsibility, educational opportunity, and shared experiences, we build a legacy of strength, wisdom, and genuine success. Oakley wiped her eyes. It's perfect. As the others nodded in agreement, I looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled in steadily, unchanging yet always changing, like family itself. Well, Guy said, raising his coffee mug, to genuine success. To family, I corrected, raising mine. To both, Oakley added softly, because sometimes they're the same thing. The sun broke through the clouds, warming the deck as we clinked our mugs together, the sound mixing with the waves, a perfect harmony of endings and beginnings, of lessons learned and bridges rebuilt, of revenge transformed into redemption.
The call came on a Tuesday, exactly 15 years after my father told me I wasn't worth the air I breathed. I was in the middle of a board meeting when my assistant slipped me a note. Your mother's calling, third time today. My name is Quinn, and I built a tech empire from the ground up while my family pretended I didn't exist. Funny how life works sometimes. We need to wrap this up, I told my executives, maintaining my composure despite the tremor in my hands. Send me the final projections by tomorrow morning. In my office, I stared at my mother's number on my phone screen. The same number I'd memorized as a child, back when I still believed family meant something. Quinn. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Baby, is that you? It's me. I kept my tone neutral, professional. The Manhattan skyline stretched out behind my desk, a view I'd earned while they wrote me off. We've been trying to reach you. A pause. Your father, he wants to talk. I almost laughed. 15 years of silence, and now he wants to talk. Things are different now. We've seen you in the papers, on TV, your company, what you've built. She trailed off, probably remembering the day they kicked me out. I was 17 then. Dad had gathered everyone in the living room. Mom, my brothers Damon and Rodney. No daughter of mine is going to waste time with computers, he'd declared. You'll marry well, that's your purpose. I'd refused. Packed my bags that night. Quinn? Mom's voice pulled me back. There's a family dinner on Friday. Please come. Why should I? Because, she hesitated. Your father's business. We're struggling. The market crash hit us hard. He needs my money. I finished for her. That's what this is about. No, we want to make amends. We were wrong, Quinn. So wrong. I swiveled in my chair, watching my reflection in the window. The scared teenage girl was gone, replaced by a woman in a tailored suit who controlled a billion-dollar tech company. Text me the details, I said finally. I'll think about it. After hanging up, I called Kayla, my business partner, and the only person who knew the full story of my past. They reached out. She sounded concerned. What are you going to do? I'm going to that dinner. I pulled up my calendar. But first, I need you to clear my schedule for Friday and book a table at Le Bernardin. Quinn. Kayla's voice carried a warning. Don't do anything rash. Rash? No. I smiled, remembering how Dad used to parade my brothers around at business functions while I sat in the corner, invisible. I'm going to do something spectacular. That evening, I dug out an old photo album I kept locked in my desk. There I was, 12 years old, proudly showing Dad the computer program I'd written. He wasn't even looking at me. Next to it, a picture of Damon receiving a sports trophy, Dad beaming with pride. My phone buzzed. Mom's text with the dinner details. Your father says to dress appropriately, she added in a second message. I texted back, change of plans, I'm hosting. Le Bernardin, 8 p.m. Tell Dad his precious sons can come too. Then I called Carlos, my PR specialist. I need you to arrange something. Discreet photographers, carefully placed. Make sure they catch every moment. What's the angle? He asked. I thought about Dad's face when he'd realize his daughter now had the power to make or break him. About Mom's silent compliance all those years. About my brother's smirks when I was thrown out. Family reconciliation, I said. The prodigal daughter returns. But that's just the beginning. And the real story. I touched the photo of my 12-year-old self, tracing the hope in those eyes before it was crushed. The real story is revenge. But we're going to package it as redemption. I closed the album. They wanted a proper daughter. I'll give them a proper show. After hanging up, I stood at my window, watching the city lights flicker to life. Somewhere out there, my family was probably huddled together, discussing how to handle me, how to get what they needed while maintaining their precious pride. Let them plan. Let them think they could manipulate me. I'd learned from the best after all. Friday couldn't come soon enough. I had 15 years of silence to fill, and I was going to make every word count. They wanted my help? They'd get it, along with a very public lesson in karma. I picked up my phone one last time and texted Kayla, book the private room, and make sure there's champagne. We're going to celebrate a family reunion they'll never forget. Le Bernardin's private room felt smaller with my family in it. Dad arrived first, of course. Punctuality was one of his obsessions. His silver hair was thinner than I remembered, but his stance remained rigid, commanding. Quinn. He extended his hand like we were closing a business deal. You look successful. I ignored his hand. 15 years will do that. Mom hurried in behind him, wringing her hands, a nervous habit I'd inherited and trained myself to break. She moved to hug me, then stopped, uncertain. Your hair, she said softly. It's so elegant now. Damon and Rodney arrived together, both in expensive suits that couldn't quite hide their desperation. Damon's Rolex was probably his last status symbol, while Rodney's shoes were scuffed at the heels. Little sister, Damon said, forcing a smile. Finally decided to acknowledge your family. Funny, I replied, taking my seat at the head of the table. I was about to say the same thing. The waiter appeared with champagne, and I watched them squirm as I ordered the most expensive bottle. Dad's eye twitched. He knew exactly how much it cost. To family, I raised my glass. And perfect timing. Damon cleared his throat. Quinn, about timing. Your company's incredible, Rodney interrupted, earning a glare from Dad. I mean, the Innovation Awards, the Forbes cover, the money, I added, making them all flinch. That's what you really want to discuss, isn't it? Dad set down his glass. We've made mistakes. Mistakes, I laughed. Is that what we're calling it now? Quinn, Mom pleaded. We're trying. You're trying because you're desperate. I pulled out my tablet, sliding it across the table. Your company's hemorrhaging money, Dad. 3 failed projects in 2 years. The board's considering a vote of no confidence. The color drained from his face. How did you? I do my research. Unlike you, I learned from my mistakes. I tapped the tablet. Damon's division is particularly interesting. Those investment choices. Amateur hour. Damon's knuckles went white around his fork. You don't understand. Actually, I do. Better than anyone. I leaned forward. You need my help. My connections. My money. But mostly, you need my name. The waiter arrived with appetizers, and we all pretended to be fascinated by our plates. What do you want? Dad finally asked, his voice rough. I'm hosting a gala next month, Women in Tech Initiative. Very prestigious, lots of media coverage. I watched their faces carefully. You're all going to attend, as my loving, supportive family. Rodney frowned. That's it? Oh, there's more. I smiled. Dad, You'll give a speech about how proud you are of your daughter's achievements. Damon, you'll announce a new division in your company, focused on supporting women in STEM fields. That's ridiculous, Damon sputtered. Our shareholders will love it. Trust me, I've done the math. I turned to Mom. And you, Mother, will be the face of a new scholarship program for girls interested in technology. The silence was deafening. Dad's jaw clenched so tight, I thought he might crack a tooth. And if we refuse, he asked, then I'll watch from my office as your empire crumbles. I shrugged. Either way, I win. Mom touched Dad's arm. Colin, maybe. Fine, he cut her off. We'll play your game. It's not a game. I stood up, dropping my napkin on the table. It's karma, and we're just getting started. You've become quite the manipulator, Damon said bitterly. I learned from the best, big brother. I gathered my things. Carlos, my PR specialist, will be in touch with details. Don't worry, he'll make sure you all look appropriately progressive and enlightened. Quinn, Mom called as I reached the door. Was any of this, did you really want to reconnect? I turned back, seeing the hope in her eyes, the same hope I'd had all those years ago. You know what's funny? I said. If you'd reached out before you needed something, this might have gone differently. I left them sitting there, surrounded by expensive food and bitter realizations. Outside, the night air felt clean, liberating. My phone buzzed. A text from Kayla. How'd it go? Perfectly, I replied. They took the bait. Call Carlos. It's time for phase 2. As my car pulled up, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked exactly like what I'd become. Powerful, untouchable, and absolutely merciless, just like they'd taught me to be. This is delicious, Carlos said, taking another bite of his croissant. Almost as delicious as your plan. We were in my penthouse office, surrounded by mood boards and event layouts for the gala. Kayla sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through potential media contacts. The press will eat this up, Carlos continued. Tech mogul reconciles with traditional family, transforming them into champions of women's empowerment. It's perfect. Too perfect, Kayla muttered. Quinn, are you sure about this? I walked to the window, watching a flock of pigeons scatter across the morning sky. Show me the speech drafts. Carlos pulled out his tablet. I've written 3 versions for your father. This one's my favorite. I was wrong. My greatest achievement wasn't building a company. It was raising a daughter who showed me the true meaning of success. He'll choke on those words, I said, smiling. That's the point. Carlos swiped through more documents. Damon's announcement about the women's STEM division is ready too. We've already leaked hints to industry blogs. My phone buzzed. Speaking of Damon. Excuse me, I said, stepping into the hallway. We need to talk, he growled. Alone. 20 minutes later, I found him pacing in the lobby of my building. He looked worse than at dinner, tie loose, hair disheveled. Making me come to you? He sneered. Power move. My building, my rules. I led him to a private conference room. What do you want? He ran a hand through his hair. This little revenge fantasy of yours. It needs to stop. Or what? You don't understand what's at stake. He slammed his fist on the table. Dad's company isn't just struggling. We're weeks away from collapse. The board meeting next month. I know all about the board meeting. I sat down, crossing my legs. Just like I know about your offshore accounts. His face went pale. How did you? The same way I know about Rodney's gambling debts. The same way I know Mom's been secretly taking anti-anxiety medication for 20 years. I leaned forward. I did my homework, Damon. All of it. So this is blackmail? This is opportunity. Play your part, and I'll make sure the board sees your new initiative as innovative leadership. The women's STEM division will attract fresh investors, positive press. And if I refuse, then I'll watch you drown. I stood up. Just like you watched them throw me out. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. You were always the smart one, he said quietly. Even back then. I should have. I pulled away. Should have what? Stood up for me? Protected your little sister. I was afraid, he admitted. of disappointing him, of losing my place. And now you're afraid of losing everything. I straightened my jacket. Funny how life works out. Back in my office, Kayla and Carlos were arguing over seating arrangements. The media needs clear sight lines, Carlos insisted. Every camera should capture their faces when Quinn announces the scholarship program. Speaking of which, Kayla interrupted as I entered. We need to talk about your mother. What about her? She called while you were gone, wanted to meet for coffee. Kayla hesitated. She seemed different. I remembered Mom's face at dinner, the way she'd almost hugged me. Different doesn't change anything, doesn't it? Kayla stood up. Quinn, I've known you for 10 years. You're not just doing this for revenge. Stay focused, I snapped. Carlos, what's next? He checked his notes. We need your family's measurements for the gala outfits, and we should schedule a photo shoot. Something casual, showing the reconciliation process. Fine, I picked up a layout board. What about the scholarship announcement? Already trending on social media, he grinned. The mysterious tech CEO planning something big. Speculation is through the roof. My phone buzzed again, Dad this time. I ignored it. Quinn, Kayla said softly. What happens after, when the gala's over? I stared at the mood board, at the perfect family portrait we'd create. They learn their lesson. And you? What do you learn? Before I could answer, my assistant rushed in. Ms. Quinn, your brother Damon is talking to reporters in the lobby. What? I pulled up the security feed. There he was, surrounded by journalists, looking straight into the cameras. My heart stopped. He's going off script, Carlos said, already dialing his contacts. I watched Damon's lips move, unable to hear his words, but recognizing his expression, the same one he wore the night I left. Get him out of there, I ordered, now. As my team scrambled, I remained frozen, watching my carefully constructed plan teeter on the edge of chaos. Maybe Kayla was right. Maybe this wasn't just about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about something much more dangerous, hope. Your brother's interview is everywhere, Carlos announced, tossing a stack of newspapers onto my desk. But you need to see this. The headline screamed across every front page. Tech mogul's brother confesses, we failed her, and family drama behind Silicon Valley success story. I scanned Damon's quotes. Our father was wrong. Quinn proved that. Now we're trying to make amends, to be the family she deserved. He went rogue, I said. But he stayed on message. Better than on message, Carlos grinned. He cried, Quinn. Actually cried on camera. The internet's eating it up. My phone lit up. Mom again. Third time today. This time, I answered. Have you seen it? She asked. Damon's performance. Yeah. It wasn't a performance. She paused. I'm at the coffee shop near your office. Please, Quinn. 20 minutes. I found her at a corner table, hands wrapped around an untouched latte. She looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile. You're not wearing makeup, I observed, sitting down. I stopped. She met my eyes. After you left, it felt pointless, pretending. Like you pretended not to see what was happening to me. Her hands trembled. I was weak. Every time he dismissed you, I died inside. But I stayed silent. For 15 years. No. She reached into her bag, pulled out a worn folder. I kept everything. Every news article about you. Every achievement. I followed your journey, Quinn. In silence, in shame. But I followed it. I opened the folder. There I was, from my first startup to my IPO. Pictures, clippings, printouts from tech blogs. Some were tear-stained. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to know, her voice cracked. The scholarship program you want me to represent. I want to do it. Not for show, for real. My coffee arrived. I stirred it slowly, buying time. Dad won't like that. Your father just got a call. She leaned forward. The board is moving up their vote. They want him out, Quinn. Unless I help. I closed the folder. And what do you want, Mom? Really want? A chance. She touched my hand. Not just to fix the past, but to do something meaningful. These girls you want to help? I see you in all of them. My phone buzzed. Kayla, reminding me about the gala preparations. I should leave. This wasn't part of the plan. Show me, I said instead. What? Show me you mean it. Come to my office, meet my team, see what we're really building. An hour later, Mom stood in our innovation lab, watching young women code, create, innovate. Her eyes were wide, taking everything in. This is incredible, she whispered. Ms. Quinn, my assistant, appeared. Your father's here. He's demanding to see you. I found him in the lobby, face red with anger. What did you do? He demanded. The board chairman just called. Something about a leaked memo. I have no idea what you're talking about. I smiled. But since you're here, let's talk about the gala. Carlos has your speech ready. Damn the gala. He stepped closer. You think you can destroy everything I built? No, Dad. You're doing that just fine on your own. Colin. Mom's voice cut through his rage. She stood in the doorway, steel in her spine. Enough. He blinked, surprised by her tone. Melina. I'm staying, she said. Quinn's showing me the scholarship program. You can either join us in the future or stay in your past. I watched his face cycle through confusion, anger, fear. You're choosing her? I'm choosing what's right. Mom turned to me. Where do we start? Before I could answer, Rodney burst in, out of breath. Dad, the investors, they're calling an emergency meeting. Something about new leadership. Dad's phone rang. His hands shook as he checked the screen. The chairman. Take it, I said. In fact, put it on speaker. Let's all hear what the future holds. As Dad's world crumbled around him, I watched Mom explore my office, touching the awards with pride. Rodney collapsed into a chair, looking lost. Somewhere in the building, Damon's interview was probably still playing on loop. My phone buzzed one last time. Carlos, everything's proceeding as planned. But Quinn, are you sure you want to go through with the final phase? I looked at my family, scattered and broken, and maybe, just maybe, ready to rebuild. Stand by, I texted back. The game's changing. The question was I ready to change with it? The gala buzzed with energy as New York's elite mingled under crystal chandeliers. I stood at the entrance, greeting guests, while photographers captured every calculated smile. Your family's already inside, Carlos whispered, appearing at my elbow. Your father's been practicing his speech. He actually looks nervous. Good. I smoothed my midnight blue gown. Where's Mom? Talking to the scholarship candidates. She's a natural, Quinn. Those girls adore her. I spotted Damon across the room, surprisingly at ease, as he discussed the Women's STEM initiative with a group of investors. Rodney hovered nearby, actually paying attention for once. Ms. Quinn? A young girl approached, maybe 17, clutching a tablet. I'm one of the scholarship finalists. I just wanted to say, you're why I started coding. My practice smile faltered. She looked exactly like I had at that age. Hungry for recognition, desperate to prove herself. What's your name? Sarah. She pulled up her project on the tablet. I developed this app for domestic violence survivors. It looks like a normal calculator, but it sends encrypted distress signals. I finished, examining her code. This is brilliant, Sarah. Your mother said the same thing. She beamed. She's been showing everyone my work. Before I could respond, the lights dimmed. Carlos appeared again. It's time. I took the stage, scanning the crowd. Hundreds of faces looked back, including my family's. Dad sat rigid in his chair, speech cards trembling slightly. Mom watched me with tears in her eyes, while my brothers tried to mask their anxiety. Welcome, I began. 15 years ago, I was told that women don't belong in tech, that our place was in the background, supporting men's dreams instead of chasing our own. The room fell silent. Today we're changing that narrative, not just through words, but through action. I gestured to the screen behind me, where images of young female coders appeared. Meet our future, 20 brilliant minds who will receive full scholarships to pursue their tech dreams. Applause erupted. I caught Sarah's radiant smile in the crowd. But first, I continued, someone else wants to share their journey of transformation. Dad? He stood slowly, straightening his tie. The cameras turned to him as he approached the podium. This was it, the moment of my triumph, my revenge. He cleared his throat, looked down at his cards, and then set them aside. I had a speech prepared, he said, his voice rough, about progress and change. But watching my daughter tonight, seeing these young women's potential, he turned to me. Quinn, I was wrong. Not just about you, but about everything. The room held its breath. This wasn't the scripted speech Carlos had prepared. I lost 15 years with my daughter because of pride and ignorance. I watched from a distance as she built something extraordinary, while I clung to outdated beliefs that were destroying my own company. Mom reached for Damon's hand. Rodney wiped his eyes. Tonight isn't about saving my business, Dad continued. It's about saving our future. These scholarships, they're named after my wife, Melina, because while I was teaching our sons to lead, she was quietly showing our daughter how to revolutionize. The cameras flashed as Mom joined us on stage, followed by my brothers. Dad turned to me, his eyes glistening. I don't deserve forgiveness, he said, but I'm asking for a chance to support the vision you've built, not as your superior, but as a father who finally sees his daughter's brilliance. The applause was deafening. Carlos gave me a thumbs up. This was better than anything we'd planned. But I barely noticed. The Melina Scholarship Fund, I announced, my voice steady despite my racing heart, will ensure that no other girl hears no when she should hear fly. Sarah and the other candidates joined us on stage. Mom hugged each one, whispering encouragement. Damon shook their hands, looking genuinely impressed. Even Rodney engaged, asking about their projects with real interest. As the evening wound down, I found myself alone with Dad on the balcony. Did you mean it? I asked. Every word. He stared at the city lights. The board voted this morning. I'm stepping down as CEO. I know. They want you to take over. He turned to me. Not because you're my daughter, but because you're better than I ever was. Inside, I could hear Mom laughing with the scholarship recipients. Damon was exchanging contact information with investors. Rodney was actually taking notes. The company needs new leadership, Dad said. It needs you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I'd never seen before: respect. We'll talk, I said finally. After all, I have some ideas about modernizing the family business. He smiled, and for the first time in 15 years, it reached his eyes. Your father's speech is trending worldwide, Carlos announced, scrolling through his phone. The video has over 10 million views. Pearson Transformation is the top hashtag. We were in the aftermath meeting, reviewing the gala's impact. The wall of screens behind us displayed news coverage from every major network. The stock's up 30%, Kayla added. Investors are calling non-stop. Everyone wants a piece of the new progressive Pearson empire. I stared at the footage, playing silently on the screens. Dad's emotional speech, Mom hugging the scholarship recipients, my brothers actually looking human. It wasn't supposed to go like this, I muttered. No, Kayla agreed. It was supposed to be revenge. Instead, it's become a revolution, Carlos finished. Speaking of which, Time magazine wants to do a cover story. The family that changed Silicon Valley. My phone buzzed. Damon. Excuse me, I said, stepping out. I found him in the company's lobby, looking up at the massive digital wall displaying our stock price. Remember when Dad used to say women couldn't understand finance? He gestured at the climbing numbers. Guess he was wrong about that too. Among other things, I crossed my arms. What do you want, Damon? The board approved your leadership proposal. He handed me a folder. Dad's stepping down next month. They want you as CEO, me as COO, and get this, they want Mom to head the foundation. And you're okay with that? Working under your little sister. He laughed. I saw the code those scholarship girls wrote. They're better than I'll ever be. Just like you always were. Flattery won't erase the past. No, he agreed. But maybe this will help. He pulled out his phone, showed me an email. I'm selling my house, my cars, everything. The money's going to fund 10 more scholarships. I blinked. What? Rodney, too. He's actually meeting with Sarah right now. She's helping him develop an app for gambling addiction recovery. Before I could respond, Mom burst in, practically glowing. Quinn, the foundation just received $1 million donation. Anonymous, but she hesitated. It's from your father. He sold his golf club membership and his collector cars. I sat down hard on a nearby chair. This wasn't how revenge was supposed to feel. There's more, Damon said. Show her, Mom. She pulled up a video on her tablet. Dad was being interviewed on a major news network. My daughter taught me that true legacy isn't about maintaining old power structures, he was saying. It's about embracing change, acknowledging mistakes, and working to create a better future. And your company's new direction, the interviewer asked, is exactly what it should have been 15 years ago. Following Quinn's vision, she saw the future while I was stuck in the past. Now it's time for me to step aside and let her lead. I turned off the tablet. This doesn't fix everything. No, Mom agreed. But it's a start. She touched my arm. The girls from the scholarship program, they're asking if you'll mentor them. I don't know if they need you, she interrupted. Like I needed you. To show us all how to be stronger. My phone buzzed again. Carlos, with urgent news. The headlines flashed across my screen. Tech giant announces historic all-female board, and Silicon Valley's gender revolution begins. Quinn, Kayla appeared, looking worried. There's something you need to see. She led us to the conference room, where the news was playing on the big screen. A group of female tech CEOs was announcing a partnership with our foundation. They were pledging billions to support women in tech. This is bigger than us now, Damon said quietly. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. The press is asking for a family statement. All of us together. I looked at my family, really looked at them. Mom, standing tall and proud. Damon, finally seeing me as an equal. Dad, humbled but trying. Even Rodney, rushing in with Sarah, excitedly showing off their app progress. Quinn, Carlos prompted. What should I tell the press? I thought about the scared 17-year-old girl I'd been, dreaming of this moment. But revenge had turned into something else, something bigger, more important. Tell them, I said, that the future doesn't belong to any one family or gender. It belongs to everyone brave enough to change. Dad smiled. Now that's a legacy worth building. Together, Mom asked. I looked at the scholarship girls watching us through the glass walls, their faces full of hope and determination. This wasn't just about healing my family anymore. It was about making sure no other girl had to fight the battles I did. Together, I agreed. But on one condition, we do it right this time. And how's that? Damon asked. I smiled. By breaking every glass ceiling we can find. You can't hide in your office forever, Kayla said, barging in with a stack of papers. The transition ceremony is in 2 hours. I was staring at an anonymous email that had arrived that morning. Your family's transformation is a lie. I have proof. Meet me or it goes public. Quinn? Kayla waved her hand in front of my face. Earth to CEO? Someone knows, I said, turning my laptop around. About the original plan. The revenge plot. Kayla read the email, her face darkening. Could be a bluff. Or it could destroy everything we've built. I stood up, pacing. The scholarships, the foundation, all of it. Quinn, Sarah burst in, her eyes bright. Sorry to interrupt, but you have to see this. She pulled up a video on her tablet. A teenage girl was speaking at a tech conference, wearing a t-shirt with my face on it. Quinn showed us that we don't need anyone's permission to change the world. The girl was saying, my dad used to tell me tech wasn't for girls. Now he's helping me build my startup. That's the 5th speech like this week. Sarah beamed. You're starting a movement. My phone buzzed. The anonymous emailer again. 1 hour, coffee shop across the street. I have to go, I told Kayla. Cover for me at the pre-ceremony meeting. The coffee shop was crowded, but I spotted him immediately. Rodney sitting alone in the corner, holding an old USB drive. You? I sat down, stunned. You sent the email? Found this while cleaning out my old room. He slid the drive across the table. It's your revenge plan. All the details, the manipulation, everything. You left it on your computer the night you ran away. My hands shook as I picked up the drive. Why didn't you tell Dad? Because I was ashamed. He looked down. I saw what you were planning, but I did nothing. Just like I did nothing when they kicked you out. And now? Now I see what you've actually built. He gestured outside, where a group of young girls walked past wearing future tech leader shirts. This is bigger than revenge. It's real change. So why the threatening email? Because you need to let go of the past. He leaned forward. The ceremony today. Dad's not just stepping down. He's announcing a complete restructuring. The board wants to name the new headquarters after you. What? But first, he pulled out another USB drive. You need to decide. This one has proof of what the company was really like before. The discrimination, the sexism, everything. Release it, and you get your final revenge. Keep it hidden, and we keep building the future. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from everyone. Mom asking about the ceremony speech. Dad sending last-minute suggestions for the transition. Damon confirming the new board appointments. Sarah sharing more videos of inspired girls. Time to choose, sis, Rodney said softly. Revenge or revolution? I stared at the two drives. Everything I'd planned. Everything I'd become. Quinn! Sarah appeared at our table, breathless. Sorry, but there's an emergency. The scholarship girls. They're all here. They want to show you something before the ceremony. In the lobby of my building, 30 young women stood waiting, each holding a laptop. As I approached, they opened them in unison, revealing a synchronized display across all screens. We wrote this together, Sarah explained. An AI program that identifies and counters gender bias in corporate communications. We call it the Quinn Protocol. It's already being adopted by major tech companies. Another girl added, your father's company will be the first to implement it fully. I felt tears forming. You did this. You showed us how, Sarah said simply. Now we're showing others. My phone buzzed one final time. Carlos, media's here for the ceremony. Everyone's waiting. I looked at Rodney, then at the drives in my hand. With a deep breath, I dropped them into the lobby's decorative fountain. Let's go change the world, I told the girls. For real this time. In the auditorium, I found my family waiting backstage. Mom was coaching the scholarship recipients. Dad was practicing his introduction. Damon was reviewing the new corporate structure with board members. Ready? Kayla asked, appearing beside me. I watched Sarah lead her team to their seats, their faces glowing with possibility. Watched Mom stand tall as reporters approached her about the foundation. Watched Dad prepare to publicly hand over his life's work to his daughter. Quinn? Rodney touched my arm. The revenge plot. Are you sure about letting it go? I smiled, thinking of all the girls who would never have to plan revenge because they'd be too busy planning their futures. Some things, I said, are more powerful than revenge. The lights dimmed. It was time to step into the spotlight, not as the daughter seeking vengeance, but as the leader showing the way forward. And that's how you change the world. I concluded my TED Talk, gesturing to the screen behind me where Sarah was demonstrating her latest AI breakthrough. The audience erupted in applause. Backstage, Mom waited with tears in her eyes. I still can't believe how far we've come. Speaking of which, Kayla interrupted, rushing over with her tablet. The Quinn Protocol just got adopted by every major tech company in Silicon Valley. It's officially industry standard now. And perfect timing, Carlos added, appearing with his usual impeccable timing. Because wait until you see tomorrow's Wall Street Journal. He handed me an advance copy. The headline read, Tech's Gender Revolution, How One Family's Transformation Sparked Global Change. Don't forget this, Dad said, joining us. He looked older but lighter somehow, like he'd finally set down a heavy burden. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a father in Seattle. My daughter showed me your story. Yesterday, I apologized to her for the first time for dismissing her dreams. Today, we're building her first robot together. We get hundreds like that now, Damon said, scrolling through his phone. The foundation can barely keep up with the applications. Quinn, Sarah burst in, her face flushed with excitement. The United Nations just confirmed. They want us to launch the Global Mentorship Program next month. I smiled, remembering the scared teenage girl I'd been, plotting revenge in her bedroom. If only she could see us now. Ms. Quinn? A small voice interrupted my thoughts. A young girl, maybe 12, stood clutching a laptop. I'm sorry to bother you, but could you look at my code? Of course. I sat down, patting the chair next to me. Show me what you've got. As she opened her laptop, I noticed my father watching us, his eyes soft. He walked over, pulled up a chair. Mind if I learn too? He asked the girl. She beamed. I'm building a program that helps kids stand up to bullies. See, it works like this. Rodney joined us, then Damon, then Mom. Soon we were all huddled around the laptop, watching this young girl explain her vision for a better world. Quinn, Carlos called softly. The press is asking about the family photo. I looked at my family, really looked at them. Mom, now a fierce advocate for women's rights. Dad, mentoring young girls in coding. Damon, revolutionizing corporate culture. Rodney, using tech to help addiction recovery. All of us, transformed. Actually, I said, let's make it bigger than family. We gathered on stage. My family, Sarah and her team. The scholarship recipients, mentors, and that brave little girl with her anti-bullying code. Hundreds of faces, all part of this revolution. Wait, the photographer said, we need a caption. I thought about the USB drives at the bottom of that fountain, about revenge transformed into revolution, about fear turned into force for change. How about the future is all of us? Sarah suggested. Perfect, I said, as cameras flashed. Later, in my office, I found one last letter on my desk. It was from my younger self. I'd written it the night I left home, full of anger and plans for revenge. Dear future me, it began. I hope you make them pay for everything they did. I picked up a pen, turned the letter over, and wrote, Dear past me, we did something better than make them pay. We made them change. And in doing so, we changed too. Your anger built a revolution. Your pain created possibility. Your revenge became redemption. You won't believe this now, but someday Dad will teach coding to young girls. Mom will fight for women's rights. Your brothers will champion change. And you'll help thousands of girls write their own stories. That's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it transforms into something more powerful. Hope. Keep coding. Keep fighting. Keep believing. Love, Quinn. A knock at my door. Sarah again. Ready? The new scholarship candidates are here. I stood up, tucked the letter into my desk. Through my office window, I could see the city skyline, dotted with buildings where women now led companies, where girls learned to code, where the future was being rewritten. Quinn? Mom called from the doorway. Your father wants to show the girls his new mentorship program. I smiled. Tell them I'm coming. We've got work to do. Because that's the thing about changing the world. It's not about revenge or redemption. It's about revolution. And revolutions, they never end. They just grow bigger, stronger, more unstoppable, just like us.
My phone lit up with Mom's name, and I already knew what was coming. The smugness in her voice confirmed it before she even finished her first sentence. Elena, honey, we just gave Bobby the money for his house down payment. $100,000. Isn't that wonderful? I gripped my coffee mug tighter, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. That's great, Mom. Really great. I know you probably wish you could have helped him too, sweetie. But with your lifestyle choices, we understood you needed to focus on yourself. My lifestyle choices. Right. Like building a 7-figure consulting business from scratch, like paying their mortgage for 3 years when Dad lost his job, like funding their 35th anniversary cruise last summer when they couldn't possibly afford it. Actually, Mom, Oh, and Bobby's already picked out the most darling colonial in Highland Park. 4 bedrooms, perfect for when he finally settles down with a nice girl. You remember Sarah from church? Her daughter just moved back to town. I let her ramble while opening my laptop. Right on schedule, a notification popped up from my banking app. They'd tried accessing the joint account I'd quietly closed last month. 3 attempted logins in the past hour. Mom, I cut in. I should go. Client meeting. Always working. You know, Elena, men don't find that very Bye, Mom. Give my love to Dad. I ended the call and immediately texted Monica. It's happening, they just found out. Monica replied instantly. Holy shit, you actually did it, you okay? Was I okay? I stared at my reflection in the window of my home office. 32 years old, self-made, and finally done being the family ATM. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Then Mom. Then Bobby. I silenced them all and opened my email instead, where a message from my lawyer, Zechariah, waited. Account secured. All traces of your involvement removed. They can't touch you now. I should have felt guilty. That's what good daughters feel when they cut off their parents, right? But watching the notifications pile up, the desperate attempts to access money that was never really theirs, I just felt tired. Tired and ready. Another text from Monica. Want me to come over? We can drink wine and burn family photos? Rain check, I replied. But there's something you should see. I pulled up a spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for years. Every loan, every emergency payment, every guilt trip-induced transfer. The total at the bottom still made me wince. $342,876.54. My phone rang again. Bobby. I answered this time, curious. Elena, what the hell? He was breathing hard. Mom's freaking out. The account's empty. Not empty, I corrected. Closed. There's a difference. But I need that money. The down payment. You mean the $100,000 they just gave you? Seems like you're covered. That's different. This was emergency money. I laughed. Actually laughed. Your emergencies or mine, Bobby? Because I've been handling everyone's emergencies for a decade now. You're being selfish. He spat. You've always been like this, thinking you're better than everyone. No, I cut him off. I've always been convenient. There's a difference there, too. The doorbell rang. I checked my security camera, Mom and Dad, looking panicked on my front step. Bobby, I have to go. Congratulations on the house. I hung up as my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I heard what you did. Smart girl. Call me. We should talk. Lucia. My cousin. The other family exile. I hadn't heard from her in years. Not since she'd been branded difficult for questioning our grandmother's will. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. I watched my parents on the camera, their faces growing increasingly desperate. Dad was holding papers, probably bank statements. Mom was crying. I sat back in my chair, sipping my now cold coffee, and opened my calendar. In exactly 1 month, Bobby's first mortgage payment would be due. In 2 months, Dad's property taxes. In 3 months, Mom's medical bills. They'd figure it out. They'd have to. Just like I had, every time they'd drained me dry and called it love. My phone buzzed with Lucia's message again. Outside, my parents finally gave up and walked away, but not before Dad slipped a note under my door. I didn't need to read it. I knew what it said. The thing about family is, they never expect you to stop playing your assigned role. The reliable daughter. The convenient ATM. The quiet fixer of other people's messes. But roles can change, and I was done playing mine. I picked up my phone and typed, "Hi, Lucia. Let's talk." "You look tired, honey. Are you eating enough? Working too hard again?" Mom fussed with my collar at Sunday dinner, her fingers lingering just long enough to make it feel like an accusation. A woman your age needs to take care of herself. You're not getting any younger. I smiled tightly, carefully extracting myself from her grip. The dining room was suffocating with fake pleasantries and the smell of pot roast. Bobby sat across from me, practically glowing as he detailed his new house plans to Dad. And the master bath has this huge soaking tub. Perfect for a future wife, right? He winked at Mom, who beamed back adoringly. Speaking of which, Mom chirped, Sarah's daughter Rachel is single again. Such a sweet girl, and she works part-time at the library. Much more suitable hours than what you keep, Elena. I stabbed a potato with more force than necessary. My hours suit me just fine, Mom. My business cleared 7 figures last year. The table went silent. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. That's very aggressive of you, sweetheart, Mom finally said, her voice dripping with concern. Men don't usually like women who make more than them, I finished. Yeah, you've mentioned that several times. Bobby laughed nervously. Come on, sis. No need to get all feminist about it. Hey, want to hear about the wine cellar I'm planning? Actually, I set down my fork. I'd love to hear how you're affording all these renovations, considering your salary at the car dealership. More silence. Dad cleared his throat. Elena, that's not very… What? Not very ladylike to ask about money? Funny, you never thought it was unladylike when you needed me to cover your mortgage. That was different, Mom snapped. That was family helping family. This attitude of yours, this cutthroat business mentality, it's not healthy. My phone buzzed. A text from Zechariah. Final paperwork filed. You're officially clear. I smiled, genuinely this time. You know what's not healthy, Mom? The fact that I paid for your knee surgery last year while you were setting aside money for Bobby's house fund. Bobby's face reddened. Hey, that's not fair. You're just jealous because… Because what? I stood up, my chair scraping back. Because I worked my ass off while you coasted? Because I built something real while you waited for handouts? Or because I finally stopped being everyone's backup plan? Elena! Dad slammed his hand on the table. That is enough. Apologize to your brother right now. I laughed, a sharp, cold sound that made Mom flinch. No. What did you say? I said no. I'm done apologizing for being successful. I'm done being told I'm too ambitious, too aggressive, too much. And I'm definitely done watching you throw money at Bobby while treating me like an ATM with a personality disorder. Mom started crying. Right on cue. How can you be so cruel? After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app. Let's review, shall we? Last 3 years. Your mortgage, $48,000. Mom's surgery, $35,000. Dad's car repair, $12,000. Bobby's temporary loan, $15,000. The anniversary cruise you couldn't afford, $8,000. Stop it, Dad warned. And now, I continued, you give Bobby $100,000 for a house he can't afford, while telling me I need to be more suitable for marriage? Make it make sense, Mom. Bobby stood up, face purple. You're just bitter because you're alone. At least I'm trying to build a real life. A real life built on Mom and Dad's money. And what you thought would be my money too, right? That's why you got Nick to co-sign instead of asking me, because you knew I'd see right through it? His silence was answer enough. My phone buzzed again. Monica, you okay? Need backup? I texted back quickly. Almost done. Meeting you in 20. If you walk out that door, Dad said quietly, don't bother coming back. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man who taught me to ride a bike and balance a checkbook, now threatening me for having the audacity to succeed on my own terms. That's the thing, Dad. I'm not the one who needs to come back. I'm not the one who's going to need anything from anyone anymore. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, Mom called out, Elena, please, we're your family. I turned back one last time. No, you're not. You're just people who expected me to set myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. And I'm all out of matches. The door closed behind me with a soft click. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucia. Did you do it? Yes, I replied, walking to my car. Your turn. The sun was setting as I drove away, casting long shadows across the neighborhood where I grew up. Where I learned that being a good daughter meant being a convenient one. Where I finally learned to say no. Behind me, in that house with its perfectly manicured lawn and carefully maintained appearances, my family was about to learn what happens when their safety net decides to save herself instead. Your brother missed his first mortgage payment, Monica announced, sliding into our usual booth at the coffee shop. 3 weeks late and counting. I stirred my latte, unsurprised. Let me guess, he tried calling me first? 17 times, according to your blocked calls log. She pulled out her phone. Also, your mom's been posting passive-aggressive Bible quotes on Facebook. Something about ungrateful children and eternal damnation. How original. I took a sip of my coffee just as my phone lit up with an unknown number. Nick's voice came through, tight with panic. Elena, please don't hang up, it's about Bobby. I put the call on speaker for Monica's benefit. What about him? He told me you'd cover the payments if things got tight, said it was already arranged. I never would have co-signed if you'd known he was lying? I finished. Yeah, that tracks. Elena, please, my credit score is not my problem, I cut in. Neither is Bobby's mortgage or his lies. After he hung up, Monica leaned forward. You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, right? They're not going to just accept that the Bank of Elena is closed. As if on cue, my phone rang again. Mom? Elena? Her voice was wobbling. Baby, we need to talk about Bobby's situation. Do we? He's your brother. He's struggling and we can't help right now. Our savings. You mean the savings you emptied for his down payment? A pause. That was different. We assumed you'd help if he needed it. You always have before. And that's exactly the problem, Mom. You all assumed I'd keep fixing everything. Did you ever once ask if I wanted to? If I could afford to? But you're so successful. She was crying now. You have that big business, all those clients. And that makes me what? The family piggy bank? That's not fair. We're blood, Elena. Family helps family. I thought about the spreadsheet on my laptop. Years of one-way help documented in cold, hard numbers. Funny how that only seems to apply to me helping everyone else. Is this about the house money? Are you really this jealous of your brother? No, Mom. This is about patterns. This is about consequences. Monica was watching me intently, concern etched on her face. She mouthed, You okay? Elena, Mom's voice hardened. If you don't help your brother, he could lose everything. Then he'll know exactly how I felt every time you drained my accounts for emergencies. Every time you dismissed my success as somehow wrong or unfeminine. Every time you picked him over me. That's not... Did you know I had to postpone buying my own house 3 years ago? Because Dad needed that new truck for his image? Or that I canceled my vacation last year to pay for your cruise? Silence on the line. But sure, Mom, let's talk about Bobby losing everything. After I hung up, Monica slid her hand across the table. You're shaking. I'm angry, I corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucia. Heads up, they're calling the whole family, trying to paint you as unstable, ungrateful, classic playbook. Let them, I texted back. Monica frowned at her phone. Your mom's already posted 3 more Bible quotes. And, oh wow, Bobby just went live on Facebook. He's crying about family betrayal and toxic success. I laughed despite myself. Toxic success? That's new. Elena, Monica's voice turned serious. Are you sure about this? Watching them implode might feel good now, but This isn't about feeling good, I interrupted. This is about finally letting them face reality. They made their choices. They chose to enable Bobby, to exploit me, to build their whole lives on the assumption that I'd keep sacrificing myself for their comfort. And now? Now they get to live with those choices. My phone lit up again. Nick had posted publicly about Bobby's missed payments. The comments were already flowing in. Family members choosing sides, old friends expressing shock. "Your dad's texting," Monica reported, still monitoring the fallout. "Says he's coming to your office tomorrow to sort this out once and for all." I pulled up my calendar, already knowing what I'd find. Perfect timing. My lawyer will be there too. Zechariah and Lucia. I showed her the meeting invitation. Time to show them exactly what they've been playing with. Monica sat back, studying me. "You know what scares them most? It's not losing the money. It's losing control. You were supposed to be the reliable one, the fixer, the good daughter. Instead, I'm the mirror," I finished. Showing them exactly who they are, and they hate what they're seeing. Outside, rain started falling, soft and steady. Somewhere across town, my brother was probably still crying on Facebook. My parents were probably still quoting scripture about ungrateful children. And I was finally free of the obligation to care. My phone buzzed one last time. "Lucia, ready for tomorrow?" "More than ready," I replied. Time to show them what consequences really look like. Lucia looked exactly as I remembered her. Sharp eyes, sharper smile, and an air of carefully contained fury. She sat across from me at the upscale restaurant, stirring her martini with deliberate precision. "I saw this coming 10 years ago," she said. "When they did the same thing to me. Different details, same story." "The trust fund?" I asked. She nodded. "Grandmother left it for both of us. Your mom, my dear aunt, convinced everyone I was unstable because I questioned their authority. Next thing I knew, poof, money gone, family turned against me, branded the difficult one." "How much?" 200,000 each. She took a sip. "But you already knew that, didn't you? That's why you called me back." I pulled out my laptop, opened a folder labeled Family Assets. "Look at this." I turned the screen toward her. 3 weeks before they gave Bobby the house money, there was a transfer from an old account, one I used to fund their emergencies. Lucia leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "They used your own money to give him the down payment?" 40,000 of it. Money I'd sent them last year for Mom's medical bills. I closed the laptop. Bills that mysteriously never got paid, according to the hospital's records. "Jesus!" Lucia sat back. "And they still don't think they did anything wrong, do they?" Mom's latest Facebook post calls me a daughter of Jezebel. So no. The waiter brought our entrees. We ate in silence for a moment before Lucia spoke again. "There's something else you should know." She pulled out her phone, showed me an email. "Remember that property in Spain? The one grandfather left to all the grandchildren?" My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "The villa? What about it? Your mother sold it, 3 months ago, without informing any of the other owners, including you." The restaurant suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. "That's not possible. She'd need signatures." "Forged them. All of them. I have proof." Lucia's voice was gentle but firm. "She's been planning this, Elena. They all have. The money they gave Bobby? It's just the tip of the iceberg." My phone buzzed. Monica sending a screenshot of Bobby's latest social media rant. "Family is everything until success makes you forget where you came from." "Funny," Lucia commented, reading over my shoulder. "They never seem to forget where to find us when they need money." "Did you ever confront them?" I asked. "About the trust fund?" "I tried. Got the same response you're getting now. Bible verses, family loyalty lectures, gaslighting about how I was imagining things." She smiled grimly. "But I did something they didn't expect." "What?" "I documented everything, every transaction, every lie, every manipulation, built a case so solid they couldn't twist their way out of it. She pulled out a USB drive. Just like you're doing now. I stared at the small device. What's on it? Everything. Bank records, property documents, emails, 10 years of their financial fraud, including what they did to you. She slid it across the table. Consider it insurance. My phone lit up again. Dad this time. We're still coming tomorrow. This ends now. They have no idea, do they? Lucia mused. That we're 10 steps ahead? I thought about the meeting tomorrow, about Zechariah's carefully prepared documents, about the years of evidence I'd collected. You know what's ironic? I said. They taught us this. All those lectures about being careful with money, keeping receipts, protecting ourselves. They just never thought we'd use those lessons against them. That's the thing about narcissists, Lucia replied. They think they're the only ones who can play the game. The waiter brought our check. As I reached for it, Lucia caught my wrist. Let me, she said. Consider it a down payment on our new partnership. Partnership? She smiled. That same sharp smile that had probably terrified our family years ago. You're not the only one who's been planning, cousin. What they did to us. It's happening to other women too, other families, and we're going to help them fight back. My phone buzzed one final time, Zechariah confirming tomorrow's meeting details. Everything was in place. You know they'll try to destroy us for this, I said. Lucia laughed, a real laugh, warm and fierce. Oh, honey, they already tried that. Now it's our turn. We stepped out into the evening air. 2 exiles turned allies. Somewhere across town, my parents were probably planning their attack for tomorrow, believing they still held all the cards. They had no idea what was coming. Ready for tomorrow? Lucia asked as we parted ways. I thought about the USB drive in my bag, about 10 years of receipts, about all the women like us who'd been silenced by family loyalty. Ready, I replied. Let's show them what daughters of Jezebel can really do. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. I watched through my security camera as Mom smoothed her hair and Dad adjusted his tie, their battle armor for confrontation. Bobby stood behind them, looking less confident than usual. I buzzed them in. Zechariah and Lucia were already seated in my home office, documents spread across the table. Elena? Mom's voice carried down the hallway. Sweetheart? In here, I called back. They filed in, faltering slightly at the sight of Lucia. Mom's face went pale. What is she doing here? Dad demanded. Sitting, Lucia replied smoothly. It's what people generally do during financial audits. Financial? Elena, what is this? Mom's voice trembled. I gestured to the chairs. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. If this is about Bobby's house, Dad started. This is about everything, I interrupted, opening my laptop. Every loan, every emergency, every missing dollar, including the villa in Spain. Mom's hand flew to her throat. I don't know what you're... Save it, Lucia cut in. We have the documentation, all of it. Zechariah cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bennett, I'm afraid you're in quite a serious situation. Fraud, unauthorized property sale, forged signatures. This is ridiculous! Dad slammed his hand on the table. We're family! Elena, stop this nonsense right now! I pulled up the spreadsheet. My karma audit, as I'd started calling it. Let's start with last year. March, you needed $15,000 for Mom's knee surgery, money that never made it to the hospital. April, $12,000 for Dad's truck repairs. May, $8,000 for your anniversary cruise. June. We paid you back, Bobby interjected. No, I corrected. You promised to pay me back. There's a difference. Elena, Mom's voice turned pleading. Everything we did was for this family. You're successful. You could afford... Could I? I turned the laptop toward them. Because while I was paying your bills, I was also taking out business loans, postponing my own life, draining my savings, all while you were secretly funneling money into Bobby's house fund. Dad stood up. This is emotional manipulation. No, Lucia said quietly. This is accountability, something this family has always been allergic to. I pulled out a manila envelope. This contains evidence of the unauthorized sale of the Spanish villa. Property that belonged to all the grandchildren, not just you, Mom. Care to explain? Mom burst into tears. You're destroying this family. Actually, Zechariah interjected, the fraudulent property sale did that, along with the forged signatures, misappropriated funds, and what appears to be a pattern of financial exploitation. Bobby had gone very quiet. The house payments, you're really not going to help? Nick's lawyer called yesterday, I told him. You knew you couldn't afford it, didn't you? You were counting on me to bail you out, just like always. You're my sister, and you're my brother, but that doesn't make me your bank. Dad moved toward the door. We're leaving. This is absurd. Leave if you want, I said calmly. But these documents are going to the authorities either way. The only question is whether you want to handle this privately or in court. You wouldn't dare, Mom whispered. Lucia laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Like you dared to steal my trust fund? Like you dared to sell property that wasn't yours? That was different, Mom protested. How? I asked. Because it benefited you? Because you thought you'd never face consequences? Silence filled the room. Heavy, suffocating silence. Here's what's going to happen, Zechariah stated, pulling out more papers. You're going to sign these documents acknowledging the debt. You're going to sell your house to repay the fraudulent property sale. And you're going to leave Elena and Lucia alone. Or, Dad challenged. Or I file these papers first thing tomorrow morning. Your choice. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Bobby stared at the floor. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Elena, Mom choked out, will you ever forgive us? I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who taught me to be strong, then resented me for it, who preached family loyalty while betraying it. I didn't do this to hurt you, I said quietly. You did that all by yourself. Every time you chose Bobby over me. Every time you lied. Every time you took and took and took, calling it love. Please. The papers are on the table. Sign them or don't, but either way, we're done. They signed, one by one, hands shaking, they signed. As they left, Bobby turned back. You know this makes you just like them, right? Using money to hurt people? No, Lucia answered for me. This makes her smart enough to stop letting people hurt her. The door closed behind them. In the sudden quiet, I could hear my heart beating, steady, strong, free. Well, Zechariah gathered the papers. That's phase 1 complete. Phase 1? I asked. Lucia smiled. Remember that partnership we discussed? Time to help other daughters break their chains. You ready for this? Monica asked, watching me hover over the post button. Once it's out there, you can't take it back. I glanced at my screen where my Reddit post waited. I documented my family's financial abuse for 10 years. Today, I finally stopped it. It needs to be told, I said and clicked. Within hours, the post exploded. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments, all sharing similar stories. Women trapped by family obligation, drained by entitled siblings, guilt-tripped into financial suicide. Look at this one, Lucia pointed to a comment. My parents remortgaged their house 3 times. Each time they made me cover the payments because family helps family. I lost my own house saving theirs. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Saw your post. Same thing happened to me. How did you get out? Then another. Please help. My brother's destroying my credit. And another. My parents forged my signature too. I thought I was alone. You've started something, Monica said softly, I opened my email to find a message from a major online publication. Would you be willing to share your story? We believe this is part of a larger pattern. Lucia leaned over my shoulder. Do it. But first, I have something to show you. She pulled out her laptop, opened a folder labeled Family Archives. Remember how I said I documented everything? She clicked through files, emails, bank statements, voice recordings. It wasn't just about the money. Look at this. A series of messages appeared. Mom coordinating with other relatives, planning how to pressure me into various loans. Dad discussing how to leverage my duty as a daughter. Bobby admitting he never intended to repay anything. They had a whole system, Lucia explained, a playbook for emotional manipulation, and they used it on others before us. My phone lit up with a text from Zechariah. You need to see this. Bobby filed for bankruptcy, listed you as a creditor. Of course he did, I muttered. That's not all, Zechariah continued. Your parents are trying to claim you stole from them. They're building a counter-narrative. Monica grabbed her laptop. Already on damage control. She pulled up my viral Reddit post, where supportive comments were flooding in faster than I could read them. Let them try, Lucia said. We have receipts, literal and figurative. I started typing my response to the publication. Yes, I'll tell my story, but it's bigger than just me. It's about generational patterns of financial abuse disguised as family obligation. Wait, Monica interrupted. Look at this. She turned her screen to show a Facebook post from Mom. With heavy hearts, we must address the lies being spread about our family. Our daughter, influenced by toxic individuals, has chosen money over blood. Toxic individuals? Lucia laughed. That's rich coming from the woman who stole her niece's trust fund. My phone buzzed again. Nick. Elena, we need to talk. Bobby showed me some documents that don't match what you posted. Forward that to me, Zechariah texted immediately. They're getting desperate. I looked at the growing response to my post, the women sharing their own stories, the pattern emerging clear as day. Then I did something I'd been planning for months. I opened a new document and started writing. An open letter to daughters who were made to pay. I see you. The ones who were told that love means empty bank accounts. The ones who were called selfish for having boundaries. The ones who were made to feel guilty for their success. What are you doing? Monica asked. Creating a blueprint, I replied, for every woman who needs to escape what I did. Lucia nodded approvingly. Add the legal resources, the documentation strategies, everything we learned. My phone kept buzzing. More messages, more stories, more women finding their voice. They're going to say you're bitter, Monica warned, that you're airing dirty laundry. Let them, I said, still typing. The truth doesn't need their permission. A notification popped up. Bobby had gone live on Facebook again, crying about family betrayal. But this time, the comments weren't sympathetic. Other stories were emerging, other victims of his financial schemes speaking up. Your parents just listed their house, Zechariah texted. Below market value. They're scrambling. Lucia squeezed my shoulder. Ready for phase 2? I looked at my screen, at the growing community of women sharing their stories, at the blueprint we were creating for escape and recovery. More than ready, I replied, and added one final line to my open letter. To every daughter who was made to pay for the privilege of being family, your worth isn't measured in dollars given or debts forgiven. Your freedom starts the moment you stop accepting guilt as currency. I hit post just as another message came through, from a women's advocacy group. We'd like to help you create a formal program. Too many women need this. See? Lucia smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't staying quiet. It's helping others find their voice. Monica raised her coffee cup. To karma, and making it a tax write-off. Your brother forged your signature, Zechariah announced, spreading documents across my office table. Multiple times, actually. On loan applications, credit cards, even a car lease. I stared at the papers, at Bobby's clumsy attempt to replicate my signature. When? Over the past year. He was setting up a safety net, planning for when the house scheme fell apart. Zechariah pointed to a date. This one's from just 2 weeks before they gave him the down payment. Lucia, who'd been quietly observing, leaned forward. He knew. They all knew this would happen. My phone buzzed. Monica sending screenshots of Mom's latest social media crusade. Prayer warriors needed. Satan is attacking our family through material greed. They're selling the house, Lucia reported, scrolling through her phone. Listed it yesterday, way under market value. They have to, Zechariah explained. The fraud investigation is gaining momentum. Better to sell now than lose it in court. Another buzz. A text from Nick. Elena, I'm filing charges against Bobby. The evidence you shared, there's more victims. Many more. I started typing a response when my office door burst open. Bobby stood there, face red, eyes wild. How could you? He shouted. They're losing everything because of you. Sir, you can't be here. My assistant called from behind him. Because of me? I stood slowly. Not because of the fraud, the forgery, the years of theft disguised as family obligation. I was going to pay it back, once the house appreciated. Once you'd squeezed more money out of me? I held up the forged documents. Like with these? He paled slightly. Those aren't... I can explain. Save it for the investigators, Zechariah interrupted. They're very interested in your explanation. Bobby's face crumpled. Mom and Dad are devastated. They might lose their retirement. They lost their retirement the moment they chose to enable you, Lucia said coldly. Elena just exposed what they did to themselves. My phone rang. Dad, I answered on speaker. Elena. His voice was rough. We need to talk. Face to face. Nothing left to say, Dad. Please. Your mother, she's not well. The stress of getting caught, Lucia interjected. Silence then. Lucia? You're still poisoning my daughter's mind? No, Uncle Stuart. Just helping her see clearly. Something you never wanted. Bobby moved toward me, hands raised pleadingly. Sis, please, we can fix this. Make it right. Make it right? I pulled up my documentation folder. Like when you made right the $15,000 you borrowed for your startup? Or the $8,000 for your ex-girlfriend's ring? Or should we talk about the credit cards you opened in my name? I was desperate. You were entitled, I corrected. There's a difference. My assistant appeared with security. Bobby didn't resist as they let him out, but his last words hung in the air. You'll regret destroying this family. The family destroyed itself, Lucia said quietly. We're just refusing to sync with it. My phone buzzed again. A message from the Women's Advocacy Group. Support group launches next week. 20 women already registered. You're changing lives. Dad was still on the line. Elena, whatever you want. Name your price. Just stop this. That's the problem, Dad. You still think this is about money. Then what? What do you want? I thought about the women in the support group, about Lucia's stolen trust fund, about years of manipulation and guilt. I want you to understand what you did, not just to me, but to every woman you taught to sacrifice herself for family. Every daughter you treated like a bank account. We loved you, he whispered. No, you used me. There's a difference there too. After I hung up, Lucia showed me her phone. Mom and Dad's house had sold. Well below value, cash offer, immediate closing. They're running, she observed. Let them, I replied. The documentation is already with the authorities. Zechariah gathered his papers. The fraud investigation goes public next week. More victims are coming forward. This is bigger than your family now. My phone lit up with another message. From a woman in the support group. You gave me courage to check my credit report. Found out my parents took out loans in my name too. Thank you for helping me see the truth. That's what terrifies them most, Lucia mused. Not the money, not the legal consequences. It's the truth finally being spoken. I looked around my office, at the evidence of my success, at the life I'd built despite them, at the community growing from the ashes of what they'd tried to destroy. You know what Mom used to say? I told Lucia. A good daughter keeps family secrets. She smiled grimly. Good thing we're not interested in being good daughters anymore. My phone buzzed one final time. Monica, your story just got picked up by a major network. Ready to go national with this? I thought about all the other daughters out there, drowning in family obligation and financial abuse. Ready, I replied. It's time everyone heard the truth. Welcome to Financial Freedom for Daughters, I addressed the packed conference room. I'm Elena, and like many of you, I was taught that love means empty bank accounts. Hundreds of women looked back at me, some tearful, some angry, all nodding in recognition. Lucia stood at the back, giving me a thumbs up. Today we're going to talk about breaking chains, I continued. About the difference between family loyalty and financial abuse. About... The door opened. Mom slipped in, thin and pale, trying to be invisible in the back row. Our eyes met briefly before I continued. About the moment you realize that saying no doesn't make you a bad daughter. After the session, while women lined up to share their stories, Monica rushed over with her laptop. Bobby's sentencing just came down, she announced. 3 years for fraud. Nick's testimony sealed it. And Dad? Lucia asked, joining us. Fled to Spain last week, Monica replied. But the authorities there are already aware of the property fraud. It's only a matter of time. I noticed Mom still sitting in the back, clutching her purse. When our eyes met again, she stood and walked over slowly. Elena. Her voice was barely a whisper. I watched your interview on television. All of it? I asked. Even the parts about the forged documents? The stolen trust fund? She flinched. I didn't know about all of it. Bobby told us. Save it, Lucia cut in. You knew enough. Mom's hands twisted together. Your father, he's not well. The stress of consequences, I corrected. Different from the stress he put me under all those years? We're losing everything, she said quietly. No, Mom, you're losing what was never really yours, including me. She reached for her phone, hands shaking. I want to show you something. She pulled up a familiar spreadsheet, my karma audit. I've been adding to it, everything we took, I did. Lucia and Monica exchanged glances. Why? I asked. Because you were right. About all of it. The manipulation, the guilt, the theft. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was wrong. We were wrong. Mom. No, let me finish. I watched those women today, telling their stories. They were telling my story too. The story of what I did to my daughter. What my mother did to me. I thought about Lucia's trust fund, about generational patterns. The house sold, Mom continued. I'm using my half to pay back the trust fund, Lucia's trust fund. It won't fix anything, but it's a start, Lucia said quietly. My phone buzzed, another message from our support group. My mother just called, said she watched Elena's interview. She's finally ready to talk about what happened. Mom stood straighter. I'd like to, if you'll let me, I want to tell my story, about being the mother who hurt her daughter. Maybe it will help other mothers stop. I looked at Lucia, who nodded slightly. The next session is Thursday, I said. Be ready to tell the whole truth. I will. She turned to leave, then paused. Elena, I'm sorry, not because we got caught, because we hurt you. After she left, Monica whistled low. Well, that was unexpected. Think she means it? Lucia asked. I watched through the window as Mom walked to her car, not the luxury sedan she used to drive, but a modest used model. Maybe, I replied. But that's not why we do this anymore. My phone lit up with notifications. More women finding their voice, more daughters breaking free. More mothers facing truth. Lucia squeezed my shoulder. Ready for the next session? I looked around the room where hundreds of women had just shared their stories, where my mother had finally spoken truth instead of manipulation, where patterns were breaking, one story at a time. You know what Bobby said to me once? I told them. Family is everything until success makes you forget where you came from. And? Monica prompted. He was wrong. Success didn't make me forget. It made me remember exactly who I am, not despite them, but because I survived them. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Zechariah. Trust fund repayment received. Lucia's account restored. Justice served. Speaking of justice, Lucia smiled. The nonprofit paperwork came through. Daughters Freedom Fund is officially launched. Monica raised her water bottle. To karma, and making it sustainable. I thought about Mom's tearful confession, about Bobby's sentencing, about Dad running from consequences, about all the daughters still finding their way to freedom. To truth, I corrected, and all the women brave enough to speak it. Outside, the sun was setting on another day of breaking chains. Tomorrow would bring more stories, more healing, more women choosing themselves over family obligation. But tonight, in this room where truth had finally been spoken, I was no longer the good daughter, the convenient ATM, or the family fixer. I was simply Elena. And that was more than enough.